سلامات كبرات تغطى لول البحر ميدا خميت وعلو كما يتمسيو أنا صب الله خمسة تريني صب قتلو ليك بعلت ملوك تسفين دولكو نايلو ما أنتي مدبنا درجة نوي حق خوني جن قداسن عزارة بنكوين دولو زعبا بزعبا ناي جيتاتشو ردان أمريكان تايا تدلدلا وي أمريكاس إثيوبيا تدحن ديا تتعر دلا ولا انتايو زخونه حصر بلد ناتو نايتي مرح وتادراوي ناي أمريكا مصيت تزاربو بإثيوبيا شعب دحريو حد خلته صبقتين زبل كون حيز قريب اللخو نحتا ناي مجمريا كبلو كون كفتني قنا قدمي جماري بزحت سواد دويلم خمزي الكنير انت خون كدا تمرتي دي ولا انتايو دحنديو تاي دا زخل جمير كدا خستايغير كدا خطو قارص دا خيت خوني قال ملا قال زبلو حطوتات بزحت دويلم حتيتو منما كم يكونن كقارص لما يجمركون كقارص إلى ساي جمركون مخنياتو إرترا قصالي تنبرا منغو أفريقي ما عندها تطوت الهجرة يكونتن علامة لني تعلامة يكاسق عفتي مدرخو خوب صحيح من الوقت يحد صرخون ويفتنات تبزبز حكا جنا خمانسي خستاي بالكون زلخنا هب جانواري وندحرك أطوخي إله يوتي خستاينيرو من الوقت كابهان دبت هلمي الكا حدا معلت بسومن كلتا معلت بسومن قلقلت أطو نعو خستاينو مبال تباهيلي ولا حنت زوقارو تشولو مقنات يبلين مخنياتو إيرترانا تتصلمبر دوك تفطرت هاجر سلازي كونت سقعت مجرشا إيرترات بهالهاجر سقع زلا ألنا سلازي بخمطات أي تدولو أي تخصتاي تكونوا من البعد بهالغة التأساس روس سلازي دلي ولا حنت نجر نخالق دملكت أي كونت نوح سلت تصبح واطرحنبر كالق ترجم سلازلوا أيكونن قبلكم فوت خبرات تخاتلتين دغنا تقديسكم ون زدوخين خون كم زدوخينات خون قليلكم حاتيتكم مدوالكم كأكب لبيد مسجنكم زي خاتي إيرتراون حق اختفلتو خاي زي كالاي جيزيز دق ما زلخو سيزي ولا حنتي كتارات ركم دلو نجر يلن أنا زميري هجمرو خلخو انتايك متص خمز خيل انتاي عزفاتات كمتصعنا خمز خيل نازي تردي أموري أبسيلة زاتو خسبي مانم يكون مانم رأسي كدنا خمزي كل فليت كام خاطر بوي زي قد أميديا زلو بزوحي دموطة بزوحي زوارد بزوحي استايزو خونو بزوح عنصارنات موطة بزوح زي تدلي نقرات يقاطمو أو حالي فهمسي أبسدرو خمان تأتو كاون سلازخل نازن بحدا يتقبل كون كا تغلال لها ما انت ميديا دبهال كفتو ويكت قربة يدي بالكا حالف كاتم دبل وقت سمع انت دي كون كا بعلى خاهم زيلكا أفلب بخا غالي حاجت كا غالي حمد إخان اختزارب حسبو خمان يبالكان مالتي تتصابوتات تاقاتي مكان دحريت كد ملاس وي خستايك تكون دحر كون كا نو سلازاي تتاراتورو نافتي كالم مدبناهم كايدينا إذا أنا جيت أشورد دخمتا دلتا مستي غازيتينيا دا تزاراربا خولي قريبه يازلخو غنا بجكاسا أنا بابيرون قدم حج انتاي بالكم زنبرن من مخانون حجون انتاي بالكم زلون أبزوم نايت حاد خستاي رخب قواس لزلا أو أخن سمعمو شعوخ أنا نحنا عصابات كنقلت بوغم سمع الله دسن
سلطانن بوليتيكان በቃኝ ጨርሻለሁ። አቶ ጌታቸው
to the party I will not be running for any specific office.
የወልቃይትና የተፈናቃዮች ጉዳይ ሌላኛው የመድረኩ ግለት
and I haven't changed my position. ደመቀ ዘውዱ should not be in the business of administering that area, but if I have to create the ground for the return of IDPs with the federal government and have to continue to work with people.
የጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር አብይ አህመድ የምስራቅ አፍሪካ ጉዳዮች አማካሪ አቶ ጌታቸው ረዳ ከአልጀዚራ ቴሌቪዥን ሄድ ቱ ሄድ ፕሮግራም አዘጋጅ ማህዲ ሐሰን ጋር ያደረጉት ለአስጨራሽ ቃለ ምልልስ ምሽቱን ሙሉን ተለቆ የበርካቶች መነጋገሪያ ሆኗል። እጅግ ወሳኝ የሚባሉት የቃለ ምልልሱ ጭብጦች ባለፈው በጣቢያው ዩቲዩብ ገጽ ላይ በቅንጭብጭብ በመለቀቁ ብዙዎች ዋናውን በጉጉት እንዲጠብቁት አድርጓቸውም ቆይቷል። አቶ ጌታቸው በዚህ ቃለ ምልልሳቸውም ስልጣንና ፖለቲካ በቃኝ፣ ወደ ቀደሙ የሙያ ዘርፍ እመለሳለሁ ሲሉም ተደምጠዋል። አቶ ጌታቸው ስልጣኑን ፖለቲካውን በቃኝ ያሉት አስረግጠውና ለሁለት ጊዜያት ያህል ደጋግመው ነው።
I'll be gone.
But gone where? To another party?
No, probably to academia, to writing books and all that. Believe me, I'm not interested in the corridors of power anymore. Even now,
you're not interested in political power, even though you've been in politics for 20-odd years.
Even now, I don't clear my words with the Prime Minister.
አቶ ጌታቸው በቀጣዩ ምርጫም ለየትኛው የፖለቲካ ኃላፊነት እንደማይወዳደሩም ተናግረዋል።
And rest assured, I will not be running for any specific office.
አንድ ሰው የአልጀዚራው ሄድ ቱ ሄድ ፕሮግራም እንግዳ ሆኖ ሲቀርብ ጥያቄዎች የሚቀርቡለት ከሶስት አቅጣጫ ነው። አንደኛው ከራሱ ከፕሮግራሙ አዘጋጅ ጋዜጠኛ ሲሆን ከዚህም በተጨማሪ ፓናል ኦፍ ኤክስፐርትስ የሚባሉትም ጠያቂዎች በእንግድነት ተጋብዘው በጥያቄ አቅራቢነት የሚታደሙበት ሁኔታ አለ። ፕሮግራሙ የሚቀረጸው ሌሎች በርከት ያሉ ተከታታዮች ባሉበት አዳራሽ ውስጥ ነው። ሌላኛው ጥያቄም በሶስተኛ ደረጃ ለእንግዳ የሚሰነዘረውም ከነዚሁ የአዳራሹ ታዳሚዎች ጭምር ነው። ይህ ፕሮግራም እንደ ሌሎች ቃለ ምልልሶች ጋዜጠኛውና ተጠያቂው ብቻ ስቱዲዮ ዘግተው በጥያቄና መልስ የሚጨርሱት የተለመደው አይነት ቃለ ምልልስ አይደለም። ይህም በመሆኑ ተጠያቂ ሰው ከሶስት አቅጣጫ የሚወረወሩለትን ጥያቄዎች በአግባቡ እየተረዳ ተገቢ ምላሾች መስጠት ግድ የሚል ይሆናል። በዚሁ መሰረትም አቶ ጌታቸው በዚሁ 49 ደቂቃ በሚሆነው የተሟሟቀ የትንቅንቅ መድረክ ላይ ከሶስቱም አቅጣጫ የተሰነዘሩትን ጥያቄዎች አስተናግደዋል። የአዲስ ስታንዳርድ ጋዜጠኛና ኤዲተር ጸዳለ ለማ፣ በአፍሪካው ቀንድ የሰላምና ግጭቶች ዙሪያ ትኩረቱን አድርጎ ጥናቶችን የሚሰራው ፕሮፌሰር ኬቲል ትራምቮል እና የኔክሰስ ፎረም ፎር ሪሰርች ኤንድ ኤክስኪዩቲቭ ዳይሬክተር የሆነው ብስራት ለሜሳን በፓናል ኦፍ ኤክስፐርት ጠያቂነት ጥያቄዎቻቸውን ለአቶ ጌታቸው እንዲያቀርቡ የተመረጡ ናቸው። ብስራት ለሜሳ በመድረኩ ላይ ድጋፋቸውን ለመንግስትና ለአቶ ጌታቸው በማሳየት የመድረኩን ግለት በተወሰነ ደረጃ ረገብ ለማድረግ ሙከራዎችን ሲያደርጉ ታይተዋል። በሌላ አቅጣጫ ደግሞ ጸዳለ ለማና ፕሮፌሰር ኬቲል ትራምቮል ልክ እንደ ሄድ ቱ ሄድ ፕሮግራም አዘጋጅ ማህዲ ሐሰን ለአቶ ጌታቸው ፈታኝ ያሏቸውን ጥያቄዎች ያቀረቡበት ጥበብ የተሞላበት ስልትም ጎላ ብሎ ታይቷል። በዚሁ የሄድ ቱ ሄድ ትንቅንቅ ጋዜጠኛው ማህዲ ሐሰን የቤት ስራውን በሚገባ ሰርቶ የገባ መሆኑን አሳይቷል። ጥያቄዎቹ ግልጽ፣ እጥር ምጥን ያሉና በመልስ ሂደት ውስጥም ተጠያቂው መፈናፈኛ እንዲያጣ በሚያደርግ መልኩ በተከታይ ጥያቄዎች ወይም ፎሎ አፕ ኩዌስችንስ የሚያጣድፍ ነው። አቶ ጌታቸውም ይሄው እስትንፋስ የሚያሳጣና በአናቱ የሚከታተል የጥያቄ ናዳ ገጥሟቸው ታይቷል። እሳቸውን የመድረኩን ግለት ከፍ በሚያደርግ መልኩ ምላሻቸውን ሰጥተዋል። አቶ ጌታቸው ለተጠየቋቸው ጥያቄዎች ተገቢ ነው ያሏቸው ምላሾች ቢሰጡም በህይወታቸው ከሰጧቸው ቃለ ምልልሶች እጅግ ፈታኝ ነው ብሎ ሊይዙት በሚችሉት ፕሮግራም ላይ ተገኝተዋል ማለት ይቻላል። በሌላ አቅጣጫ አቶ ጌታቸው ከጋዜጠኛው ከፓናል ኦፍ ኤክስፐርትስ እና የአዳራሹ ታዳሚ የቀረቡላቸውን ጥያቄዎች በሙሉ ምላሽ ለመስጠት ያደረጓቸው ጥረቶች በብዙዎች አድናቆትን አትርፎላቸዋል። ይህ ዋናው ቃለ ምልልስ ከመለቀቁ በፊት ከቀናት በፊት ተቀነጫጭበው የቀረቡት የቃለ ምልልሱ ክፍሎች ላይ በርካታ አስተያየቶች መሰጠታቸው ሙሉ ቃለ
There is no credible argument whatsoever to try and go against the sovereignty of Eritrea.
Are you saying that the claims of the Ethiopian government led by Abiy saying we want access to that Red Sea port that's in Eritrea, you're saying that won't lead to war?
No. What I'm saying is I don't expect that to lead to war, at least not in the foreseeable future, as far as I'm concerned.
Prime Minister Abiy, on the one hand, has said he wants peace. He says he wants to avoid conflict. On the other, he's vowed to, quote, correct this historic error of the seaport and said, quote, I am 1,000,000% sure Ethiopia will not remain landlocked. The Ethiopian military said recently that it will not hesitate to make any sacrifice to secure access to the sea. How are those not threats?
So I have reason to believe that President Isaias and Prime Minister Abiy will find it in their hearts to find a way to resolve, to defuse the crisis. Believe me. That's what I believe in.
When you say believe me, this show is not about belief. It's about facts. It's about evidence.
Do
you have any evidence?
I'll tell you about the facts.
Do you have any evidence that you're ruling? You're saying there's no conflict. Everyone who's worried about conflict right now.
I'll give you the facts. You know, I recently traveled to Afar region, all the way to Bure.
Yeah.
And I saw concrete asphalt being built by the Ethiopian government.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Eritrean government also is building their side of the asphalt. So it must have been a recent fallout between the two sides. So if they have made that investment sincerely, and then I cannot rule out the two parties coming together.
People worry about the rhetoric. Many would say this is not about a port. This is about expansionism by the Ethiopian government. Some have said that Abiy is, quote, obsessed with Ethiopia's imperial past, that he wants to march into Eritrea's capital and declare the Red Sea as his border. He wants to be celebrated as the leader who restored Ethiopia's greatness. What do you say to people who say that?
Well, I said as much in the past myself. Now the question is...
Those are all your quotes. You said he was obsessed with Ethiopia's imperial past. You said he wants to restore Ethiopia's greatness. Is that not what you believe anymore?
Well, no. I mean, I don't have any problem with Abiy wanting to restore Ethiopia's greatness, whatever that greatness is. My issue is that sort of claim is not likely to lead to the kind of conflict people fear is going to happen anytime soon.
At the time, when you said it in 2021, you said it would lead to conflict.
I said it in No, I didn't even say it will lead to conflict. I said he will take over Asmara.
I understand that's what you're saying. My question is, does that mean you no longer think he's an imperialist warmonger?
No. I think at this point in time he cares more about his image, that he's trying to make differences in domestic politics and all that. So I don't think he will risk the kind of expansionist approach that many people impute to him. But
many people being you.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I went beyond that he would take over Asmara.
Okay.
He hasn't taken over Asmara.
So are you saying you were wrong about it?
No, he hasn't taken over Asmara.
If war does break out with Eritrea, should Abiy give his Nobel Peace Prize back?
Well, he could.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Let's go back to our panel. Sadali Lema, what do you make of the tensions between Eritrea and Ethiopia? Getachew says, believe me, he's got some insider information. They're not going to go to war. Do you buy that? Are you worried?
I am worried, and I think a lot of people are worried. I think the fundamental problem of the tension today is the alliances that President Isaias Afwerki and Abiy Ahmed created a war pact. And when the Pretoria Agreement was signed, it collapsed. Now the two are looking at each other. But the problem is that I think the Prime Minister made it for the first time a few weeks ago when he said that what they want is a navy base. And it's not just the port access. And this ups the ante.
I want to bring in Sheetal Tronville. You study conflicts. You know both these countries very well. Do you think war is inevitable? Do you think it's avoidable? Do you buy the, should we call it complacency or positivity from Getachew here?
No, I think the war is coming, and it's coming pretty soon. Ethiopia is now posturing and ticking off every box of claiming a right to self-defense, accusing Eritrea of destabilizing Ethiopia, accusing Eritrea of funding and arming militias, the Fano Amhara militias, accusing Eritrea to collude with the Tigrayan government or the TPLF in Tigray. The Minister of Foreign Affairs in Ethiopia submitted a letter to...
ናይ ጌታቸው ረዳ ንዓና እኮ ሎተሪ እኮ ይበፅሕና ይርዳእኩም ደሎ ብል አቢነር ይርዳእና ደሎ ከመይ ዝበለ ዓብይ ሎቶርያ እኮ ይበፅሕና ክፍኣቶምሲ ባዕሎም በትኽፋእ ክፉእ መልሓሶም ዘውፅሉ ዝቃልዕሉ ዓብይ ኤቪደንስ ኤርትራ ረኺባላ አብይ አሕመድ ክሌም ገብር ከም ዘሎ ብኩሉ ኣምሓራ ተመፁ ኤርትራ ወያነ ተተላዕሉ ኤርትራ ዓፋር ተተላዕሉ ኤርትራ ኩሉ ዘጋጥሞ ዘሎ መቕዘፍቲ ኤርትራ ዝገበረቶ እንዳበለ ክሌም ከም ዝገብር ዓለም ትፈልጠልና ኣላ ኩሉ ግዜ እታ ማርያም ኤርትራ ማርያም ኣስመራ ስጋሕ ሕጂ ኣይተጋደፈትናን ኣላ እሞ እዛ ኣነ ከመይ ተሓጊሰሉ መሲልኩም ደጋጊንኩም ድሕር ሰሚዕኩሞ ብፍላይ ናይ ብሓቂ ንዓና ዓብይ እቲ ናይ ሽልማት ዝወሰዶ ናይ ኖቤል ሽልማት አብይ አሕመድ ንሕና ኢና ወሲድና ኣብዛ ሰዓት እዚኣ
to the Secretary General of the UN, taking off all of these issues, saying that we will be patient, we want peace, but we are not patient for too long.
Sheetal says war is coming, and he's laying out that the Ethiopian government seems to be making the case for it.
While I agree with his analysis, what I'm saying is war is not necessarily inevitable. The reason why I don't believe war is inevitable is because the region has more than ample experience of turning things around and making the best of baddies out of erstwhile enemies.
Excuse me, Mr. Getachew, the region has also ample experience with war after war after war after war, relapsing to war more than creating sustainable peace.
Let me bring in Bisrat Lamessa. Let me ask you, Bisrat, when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says, we will correct the historic error, the mistake made 30 years ago will be corrected tomorrow. It is an existential issue. That sounds like a guy getting ready to do war.
The government and also the Ethiopian people at large resent a flawed political process through which Ethiopia lost its coastal territories. So the Ethiopian government wants to sit down and discuss that with the Eritrean regime. Now, this is the problem. Eritrea's aggression is not necessarily linked to Ethiopia's quest for access to the sea. The Eritrean government hasn't managed to capitalize on Eritrea's independence and create a functional state that is reliable, predictable, and has institutions. In 2018, the Ethiopian government tried to formalize the expression of interest in friendship into institutionalized agreements.
Well, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia in 2018 recognized the borders.
It was just the borders per the Algiers agreement, but it wasn't necessarily about making corrections to the historical strategic blunder.
We
እንታይ
are
history
going to
ለካ
take a
ናይ
short break.
ካልእ
In part 2, we will be back with Getachew Reda, with our panel of experts.
ያ ኣበላታ ሓንቲ ክንረኽባ ኢና እሞ እንታይ ይመስለኩም ደቀረ ፅቡቅ ኣሎ ዲ እንድሕር ደኣ ሰሚዕናየ ኢና እሞ ንዛተየሉ ትብሉ እንድሕር ኮንኩም ከዓ ናፍቲ ዘተ ክንከይድ ንኽእል ኢና ግን ኣቤት ኣላ እዚኣ ኦኬ ፀኒሐ ከምፃየ ንዓ ኣብይ ገይረ ኣለኹ መቐፀልታ ተቆራሪፅ ክስታይ ስለ ዝኾነ ኦኬ ካብኣ ክንቅፅላ ኢና ድሓር ንግዚኡ እዛ ናይ ሓዋዊሰልኩም ዳ እምበር ድሓር እቲኣ ስጋዕፍታ ደላታ ምክስታይ ትኾን ንግዚኡ እዚኣ ናይ እንታይ ገብርኹም ዘለውን እንታይ ዓይነት ዓወት ረኺብና ኣለና ክንሪኦ
سعادة
أسمرا بملئتا على اللعتين والعموعيلهم بزنا بتقول التغير يا أستو أنتي روتي يوندي دحن شلل بليو عينهم سلزيك إلالهم إرتراو حقوس إرتراخ حقوس سدرا إرتراخ حقوسو باحدة يبلهم بزعات سلزلو إلهم ناتيرهم نافت منغست سلزو خدو أنتي ريو هاللخو أيدليكني مملاس anyway كوريعم دخريعم دلونا إذن أي مجمريانا يكونن كغتسل كايو كغتسلي إرتراوي حانس عند حرنا خيسو رانا بريت حاز انت حيسكاها ايتفنو تبهال كابوباتاتهم دورس واصل زلا ايفنو وانيم تمليسين ابيك بلوكمي اي ثينك اذا انا جيتاتشو ردا it's very important معنا ناب كلها شارك نبلوخن كلا لنا كل العلامات كله حزبي كريوخ لالو بفلاي تاغارو حج قوربتي كافتي رأس إرتراوي ورد أولهم زو حواتي ورد بلولنا مخنياتو جونوسايد من سقع حجكم تتوعوا عزلهم سقع حج عبيتهم سقعنا عشتهم جونوسايد من إرتراز قبرون أبي أحمد نو دقت قطعكم رؤسكم فليتكم حجي تنقركم الله بواقعي بحوهم بودبهم بوددهم اتي ازون كلهم من سيات تقراي نزي قلعتازي ابزبانهم تشكينهم كاب دروناتن كاب قلن كهدموان كحاوان بغاريزات تشكيمهم نزون كلهم حالف تحجي اب اديس ايثيوبيا خوينهم زحلهم اندابلعو بعفار دو بخستايدو اندابلو نعا ود تقراي اندابلو اب حود اتوهم دلو نعاتهم بلوهم يخم እዚኦም ደም ደይብሎም ምዃኖም ክንደይ መንእሰያት እኳ ያኸሲሮም ቅድሚ ዓይነይ ዝብል ዝነበረ ኣብይ ኣሕመድ እወ ጆኖሳይደር እዩ ንኸይብል ረብሕኡ ጉዳይ ወንበር እዩ እዚ ጉዳይ ጥቕሚ እዩ ንውልቂ እዩ ድሓስብ ዘሎ ናይ ኣዲን ነቦን ከማ ናይ ሓሰበን ዝሰብ እዚ እንኳን ንዓኻትኩም ክሓስበልኩም ስለዚ ዝደከረክን ገዲፍክን ናብ ዘይደከረክን ኣይትሕኮራ ተጋሩ ልቢ ግበሩ መን ይፈታዊኹም መን ይፀላኢኹም ከተላልዩ ከኣሉ ነንሕድሕድኩም ተሰማምዑ ተፋቐሩ ከምዚ ንሪኦ ዘለና ሕጂ ናይቲ ማል ቦምባ ገለ ተገይሩልኩም ደሎ ስጋዕ ክንደይ ዝኣክል ብረትን ገለን ከዓ ተኣኪቡ ከም ዘሎ ከዓ ይዝረብ ኣሎ ስለዚ እታ ኤርትራ ትብል ኣፍታ ጫፍ መልሓስኩም እንድሕር ኣላ ኮይና ዋላ እታ መልሓስኩም ከማን ጭረምዋ ጨሪንኩም ገሓፍዋ ንኸይተልዕልዋ ምእንታን ንሕና ገበርቲ ክፉእኹም ኣይኮንና ሰራዊት ኤርትራ ብስነ ስርዓት ብዲሲፕሊን ንኽሸይን ከማን ከየፍቀደ ዘይከይድ ሰራዊት ስለ ዝኾነ ውረዱሉ ካብ ርእሱ ውረዱሉ ከምዚ ቁማል ኣብኡ ተሸኺትኩም ሰራዊት ኤርትራ መንግስቲ ኤርትራ ምስ ኣብይ ኮይኑ ምስ ገለ ኮይኑ ሕጂ ተረዲእኹም ኣለኹም ካብ ኣፍሓውኹም ኣቋርፅዎ ጀኖሳይድ ተገይሩልና ዲኹም ትብሉ ኣለኹም ፋይን መን ገይርዎ ግን ክትዛረብሉ ክትክእሉ ኣለኩም መቃመምቲ ኮነት ኤርትራ እንተጠረጥኩም ኤርትራ ኣንበጣ ተመፀ ኤርትራ ጨሕራሩ ተመፀ ኤርትራ ዋ ንዕባ ግደፉ እቲ ሰላም ንደለይና እንድሕር ትብሉ ኮንኩም ስን ናቲ ሰላም ትደልይሉ ዘለኹም ህዝቢ ከዓ እንዳቀየንካ ደይኮነ እንዳተሰማምዓ ንዓኹም ከይነቀይን ክንብል ክንግናሕ ኢና ንውዕል ዘለና ሕማቕ ንኸይንዛረብ ወይ ከዓ ሓቂ ንኸይንዛረብ ስለዚ ተጋሩ ድሕር ደጊም የድብለኩም እዛ ጆኖሳይድ ኢልኩም ከተልዕልዋ ከለኹም ኣይተልዕልዋ ይንብለኩም ኒና ተገይሩልኩም እዩ ምክንያቱ ኣሕዋትኩም በዓል እዚ ሳምቡእ በዓል እሲኦም ድሮናት በየን መፃኹም ዘለዋ ዝሕብሩልኩም ነይሮም ውረዱ ካብ ርእስና ፈሊኹም ምጭማት ተመሃሩ ተጋሩ ፈተውትኹም ኣይተርሕቑ ፀላእቲ ከዓ ኣይተብዝሑ ንሕና ፀላ ይብልና ፈሪህናኩም ግን ኣይንመወትን ኢና እቲ ሓቂ ክትፈልጥዎ ድግባእኩም ክትፈልጥዎ ክትክእሉ ኣለኩም ደይትፈልጡ ከዓ እኮ ኣይኮንኩምን ግን ኣመማቕርቲኹም ትገብሩና ሰብኣይን ሰበይትን እንድሕር ተባኢሶም ኣብ ትግራይ ኤርትራ ኣትያቶ ትኸውን ትብሉ ገለ ተኾነ ኤርትራ ትብሉ ርእስኹም ተሓመምኩም ኤርትራ ገለ ገይራ ህለይ ትብሉ እንታይ ደይ ትብሉና ኣብ መዓልታዊ ሂወትኩም ዋላ ተዓንቂፍኩም ከማን እኳ ኢኹም ኤርትራ ኣትያቶ ትብሉና ደለኹም ንዕባ ወጃኹም ኢለኩም ስለዚ ውረዱ ካብ ርእስና ንከባበር ሰላም ኢና ንደሊ ሓጋጊዝና ተሓባቢርና ክንከይድ እንድሕር ኮይና ከዓ ክልተ ሰብ ሓደ ክኽብር ሓደ ከዓ ከምድላዩ ክኸውን ድፈቅድ ሰብ የለን እሱ ምትሕብባር ኣይበሃልኒ እንዳ ወንጀልካ ኣብ መስራዕካ ከተእትዎ ምፍታን እዩ ድበሃል ከምኡ ከዓ ምስ ኤርትራ ኩን ኤርትራውያን ኣይሰርሕኒ ንኩሉ ነገር መስመር ኣለዎ ስለዚ ሕጂ ተረዲእኹም ስለ ዘለኹም በታ መርድእኹም ጌርኩም ሒዝናይ ናብ ሕጂ እኳ ዓሻተ ኮይኑ ምዃን ሳምቡእ እንዲ ክምለስ እዩ ብጀካ ዝሕላ ስጋን ቦድካን ካልእ እንታይ ይረኣየ ጠልጠል እንዳበለ ክመፃኩም እዩ መፂኻለይ ደይሉ ከእስኹ ጉዝየ እዩ ሞ ደቀረ ናብታ ናቶም ክንቅፅላ እሞ ዝተኻለኩም መጠን ሸር ክትገብርዎ
are on the brink of another war. Tonight, I'll also be joined by our panel of experts. Sadale Lemma, journalist and editor of...
እዚ ክቡራት ተኸታተልቲ ልባሕር ሚድያ እዚ ኣዝዩ ሸር ክበሃል ዝግበኦ እዩ ሕጂ ፅቡቅ እዩ እዚ ብኣልጀዚራ ምምፅኦ ኣልጀዚራ ብኩሉ እንዳተኣቱ ዓለም ሙሉእ ኢድ ሰምዓ ተሰሚዕልና ኣሎ ዋላ ሓንቲ ናህና ክስታይ ምግባር እውን ብዙሕ ክስታይ ኣይኮነ ንኸውን ግን ሸር በልዎ ሻሕ ሓብልዎ ናብ ኩሉ ይብፃሕ كله تدسمعون دي سمعون كاقص سنابل بفلاي تحت أقدم أسمعكم زنبركم كله يبقى محرني أصلا زخانة نتي إنجليش بزح سمع زي كل نوعون حجاز أصلا زخانة نده ترجمه نايتي تقراوية كمان دلي يعني رم كلين كلهم نتم تجارو نتم إنجليش دي سمعوا يا محرنيا دي سمعوا حاجة سكون كفلتوا لهم تخفات كابي كم دمتة كاب أون كم دمتة كفلتوا له زمان اللي تكوي حاجات اللي نيران تايم هم قبر كده
Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Abiy, as you know, is a controversial, some would say divisive political figure in your country. His critics say he's a tyrant, he's a grifter, he's dismembering Ethiopia. What's your response to people who make those criticisms of your boss?
Some, if not most of the things I have said all along the last couple of years, the last few years. So after having signed the Pretoria Agreement, and submitting ourselves to the Constitution, because we have to put an end to the war. And after having served as interim president of Tigray for 2 years, we have come to a point where we have to work closely with the Prime Minister, whatever our political differences, whatever our characterizations.
You recognize that you're the person who called him a tyrant, a grifter, dismembering Ethiopia?
And more, yeah.
And more. You did go more. Yeah. You actually accused him of committing the crime of crimes, genocide, against your people, against the Tigrayans during the recent civil war. According to you, Abiy's forces even tried to assassinate you via drone strike, and they abducted and detained your sister. How does your sister feel about you working with the people who abducted her? Must make for an awkward family dinner.
My sister would feel the pain of having to go through the kinds of problems she had to face. But I think it would be fair to say that my sister is going to feel relieved that the kinds of sufferings she had to go through, people would not have to go through anymore.
You fell out with your old party, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, the TPLF. They ousted you. And then you went and joined Abiy Ahmed. You didn't have to join the other side. You could have just said, you know what, I'm done with all of you.
Yeah, one of the things I knew I had to do was to make sure that my erstwhile friends, my comrades, who for one reason or another, of course that would include myself too, led to the kinds of suffering the people of Tigray had to suffer because of their failure in leadership, should not be allowed to continue to enjoy the kind of totalitarian control over the people of Tigray. So as long as there was a possibility, indeed a likelihood of working closely with the federal government, not to spite the people of Tigray, but to protect the interests of the people of Tigray.
But you're working with the federal government, hold on Getachew, you're working with the federal government that you spent years calling war criminals. You said Abiy Ahmed, and I'm quoting you, perfected genocide into an art form. Do you stand by those genocide accusations, or have you walked them back now that you work with?
Whatever the superlatives there, I know all kinds of crimes were committed in Tigray.
Did Abiy Ahmed carry out a genocide?
I will tell you this, as a lawyer, yeah. I cannot say who did this and that, but the crime was committed in Tigray.
You're a lawyer?
Yeah.
Were you not a lawyer in 2021 when you said Abiy Ahmed has carried out a genocidal campaign?
Yeah, I was a lawyer.
Were you not a lawyer when you said Abiy committed genocide on the people of Tigray?
I was a lawyer, and I was in the heat of a conflict that was claiming the lives of hundreds of thousands of people.
So was it a genocide or not?
I believe genocide has been committed in Tigray.
By Abiy Ahmed?
Well, I have to be responsible for my words now.
So you weren't responsible
And I
before.
am ready to stand by my position that genocide has been committed.
I'm confused. Just to clarify for the audience watching, you still believe it was a genocide,
yes.
But you're not willing to say he did the genocide?
Yes.
It was a genocide that just happened by itself?
No, there were so many actors involved.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is...
Was he one of them?
Well, the war on Tigray was led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed himself.
So he led the genocide?
I mean, we don't have to be that specific.
We do.
He led the war.
That's why we invited you here, to find out your views.
He led the war.
He led the war.
So I will give him the opportunity to
genocide.
defend himself in public, in court.
Okay.
What I'm saying is all kinds of crimes.
You mentioned...
Crimes, ethnic cleansing, genocide were committed.
So you're right, there were well-documented war crimes committed by the federal government, by Eritrean troops, yes. By Amhara militias. But human rights organizations in the United Nations also documented massacres of hundreds of people, including civilians, by Tigrayan forces, by your side. At the time, you labeled those claims, quote, a figment of someone's imagination. You called it a staged drama. Can you now admit that you were lying at the time to cover up war crimes by your forces?
I was making a statement defending our decisions that there was no systematic attack against civilians by the Tigrayan forces, but to the extent that there were incidents, we were ready to hold ourselves accountable to any international tribunal. So when I say...
You said at the time, these are just a figment of someone's imagination. There was no such thing as our forces going in every house and targeting civilians. They fought and our forces fought back. That sounds like a denial of war crimes.
You know, in the benefit of hindsight, I can see cases here and there where civilians were targeted.
Here and there?
Yes.
One man said he counted 55 corpses as he escaped from his town in northern Ethiopia. He stepped over bodies scattered in the streets. Another asserted he was rounded up with 20 men who were shot in front of him. Yet others claimed Tigrayan forces went door to door, killing men and teenage boys. That happened on your watch.
Well, to say that it happened under my watch, under circumstances, would be a bit of a stretch. But when I say that no decision, such decision was made against civilians, I still stand by it, because there was no decision to target civilians. But as long as there were off-grid officers here and there who have targeted civilians, I'd be more than glad to assume my fair share of responsibility.
To be fair, you recently exposed an internal TPLF investigation that accuses 231 of your former leaders and affiliates of crimes, including human trafficking, abductions, gold and weapons smuggling. But you waited to reveal it.
Honestly...
How do we know you weren't involved in these crimes?
Honestly, I wasn't involved in the crimes because...
Well, you exposed
there was crimes.
But I knew...
That's not really a good defense. I wasn't involved in the crimes because I wasn't.
After having spent months as president of the interim administration, it came to my knowledge that these kinds of activities were quite...
But you didn't reveal it.
I didn't reveal it
until this year.
Because I didn't reveal it because we believed in the TPLF that maintaining a modicum of unity was far more important than addressing our internal problems. And that...
I mean, human trafficking is not an internal problem. It's a major crime.
When I first decided to bring those not just accusations, but also evidence to light, well, my responsibility was to make sure the people who were in the business of adjudicating these cases were informed. And it's not like I can go door to door and prosecute myself.
But you exposed 231 people.
But I did the exposing way ahead of my being ousted as interim president.
But you admitted earlier this year that you lied up until now. I tolerated it.
I tolerated.
You lied. You said you lied.
No, I didn't lie. I tolerated.
You said earlier this year, it is enough that I lied up to now, and I tolerated up to now.
Whoever translated those things to you must have overstated their case.
What would you say to someone in this audience who says, you exposed 231 people in your party for committing crimes. Conveniently, none of the 231 were you.
Unfortunately for whoever was making those claims, I wasn't one of them. It's as simple as that.
Okay. The Pretoria Agreement, the peace deal that you negotiated, signed in 2022, that pledged justice for millions of people who suffered during the war in Tigray. It's been 3 years, and none of the key promises have been fulfilled. None of the major players have been held accountable for war crimes. In fact, many of them are still in positions of power. Last month, you met with Amhara official Demeke Zudu, who Human Rights Watch has said continued the ethnic cleansing in Western Tigray even after the ceasefire, including, quote, arbitrary detention, torture, forced deportations. How can Tigrayans possibly believe that you are working in their best interest when you're meeting one of the men who's responsible for them having lost their land?
Is that unheard of elsewhere? If you are interested in resolving this crisis, you have to deal with people who are in charge now. I believe the federal government needs to dismantle any Amhara administration in occupied areas in Western Tigray and other parts of Tigray that are still occupied by the Amhara. And if I have to make sure that the people have their opportunity to come back home, you have to work with the federal government and work with people.
This is the problem, Getachew. You seem to change your tune. You have to change your tune.
No, I have to swallow my pride.
Not just swallow your pride, you're changing your very view of the world. This is what you said a year ago.
No, I'm not
This is what you said.
Anyone.
This is what you said a year ago. It would be very foolhardy for us to expect internally displaced persons to enter when the very people who caused their displacement in the first place are still roaming the very streets we saw in the carnival. You're sitting down with those people.
This is one of the arguments we have with the federal government when I was head of the interim administration, is for that Amhara administration to be dismantled and for security to be taken care of by the federal government, along with traditional militia and police institutions that had been there before the war. And I haven't changed my position. Demeke Zudu should not be in the business of administering that area, but if I have to create the ground for the return of IDPs with the federal government and have to continue to work with people like him.
Many Tigrayans, you know this, see you as a traitor. Thousands of people in Tigray went to the battlefield and they died. They were killed in war based on your call to arms. You urged young Tigrayans to, quote, rise and deploy to battle in tens of thousands. What do you say to the people of Tigray today who were victims of the war and who now think you betrayed them by joining the architect of their suffering, Abiy Ahmed?
There are two things here. That Tigrayans had to come out en masse to defend themselves was the right thing to do. That I had to call on them to rise up to defend themselves was the right thing to do. But that, as member of the leadership, we have failed them miserably. That I will carry to my grave is I am part of the blame. And the reason why I am trying to do what I am doing right now is to make sure that not only I atone for the kinds of mistakes we have done, but also I have to do everything in my power to make sure that that sort of miscalculation will never happen again. And the thousands of youngsters who paid their lives, that could have been avoided if we were insightful enough as the leaders. Doesn't happen again.
All right, let's go to our panel of experts here. I'm joined by Sidale Lema, editor of the Addis Standard newspaper. Were you surprised, Sidale, to see Getachew join Abiy Ahmed's administration? What does that mean for the victims of the war? He says he feels like he's atoning for things.
I think it's one of the greatest tragedies, Getachew. This is not just a moral collapse. This risks erasing morality altogether. You agree that a genocide took place. And it's not just a figment of imagination. You mentioned about, I would call it pragmatism or working from within to solve this problem. And I think your supporters also say the same thing. What have you done so far? Have the people of Tigray been compensated, redress, justice? Have the federal government tried to incorporate, after you even came to it, incorporate Tigray into the federation? The answer is no.
Okay.
Is there any justice to the victims? The answer is no.
Bisrat Lamessa is an independent researcher, runs the think tank Nexus Forum for Research and Dialogue. Do you agree with Sidale's point that he may have joined the government, he may be trying to do good, but where are the results? What did you make when you heard the big news that he had come and joined Abiy Ahmed?
I don't agree with Sidale, unfortunately. Well, one thing, it hasn't been designated as a genocide. This is a
ክቡራት ተኸታተልቲ ልባሕር ሚድያ የቕሬታ እታ ቀዲመ ኣርእየኩም ነበርኩ ታመልእ ትመስለሃን ስለ ዝኾነት ኣብዚኣ ኢና በፂሕና ነርና ተቐድሚኡ ዝነበረስ ክስታይ የበልኮን ግን
very sensitive concept that we shouldn't casually throw around. But when it comes to Getachew, I believe this is a very pragmatic move that has positive dividends at multiple levels. This is not a simple alliance between two individuals. People are rejecting TPLF's 50-year autocratic monopoly over the people's political, civil, and economic lives. They want a new political dispensation which is democratic, inclusive, open, and diverse. And I believe such a move is an ideal opportunity to create an alternative space that will enable Tigray to renew itself from within.
So Bisrat makes the case for why you should be in there. Deal with Sidale's point that what have you actually achieved being in government?
I'll have to first respond to what Sidale. I mean, you know, I'm not here to pontificate about moral. I'm one of those leaders who should be blamed for anything and everything that has gone wrong. But I also know that I'm one of the leaders who realized that going ahead with the kind of destructive approach we've been following is not going to be in the best interest of the people of Tigray.
What have you achieved by making this big step?
Oh, you mean since joining? I had long since joined Abiy Ahmed. I was the interim president appointed by Abiy Ahmed. And why is it that all of a sudden now I was ousted from Tigray, as it were, and then I come to Addis and I have to deal with Tigray issues. I still have to protect the best interest of the people of Tigray in any way I can. And then I have the opportunity to work with the Prime Minister, not as a policymaker, but as an advisor who would give his 5 cents.
Let's bring in Kjetil Tronvoll, is a professor of peace and conflict studies at Oslo New University College. He specializes in Ethiopian and Eritrean affairs. Getachew says he wants accountability and justice for Tigray and the victims of the civil war. Is the federal government that he's part of, that he's a minister in, is it working towards that aim? Is it doing enough?
Well, we don't have any evidence for that as of now. They have put in place a so-called transitional justice mechanism to address the mass atrocities taking place in Tigray during the war. But that framework of so-called transitional justice is more aimed at not disclosing and not placing accountability on individuals, but diverting attention to other aspects of Ethiopia's long troubled history of human rights abuse. So as of today, we have no evidence whatsoever that the government is providing accountability for the mass atrocities.
No evidence whatsoever. That's pretty damning.
I agree with Shetil. Nothing of the sort has happened. Well, the defense ministry has taken measures against some off-grid low-level officials. And as long as I am able to convince or try to impress on the powers that be in Addis Ababa that none of the adventures 5 years ago are going to pay dividends, and then I will use that opportunity.
In 2019, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed won the Nobel Peace Prize for ending decades of hostilities with neighboring Eritrea. Abiy then partnered with Eritrea to fight against Tigray in the civil war. Today, however, there are rumblings of a possible new conflict between these two countries. There are reports of Ethiopian tanks and artilleries moving towards the border. Both governments are accusing each other of trying to provoke a conflict. Is Ethiopia on the precipice of another war with Eritrea?
I wouldn't put it that way. I mean, the whole rhetoric about Ethiopia's wanting to have access to the Red Sea is often conflated with the idea of ownership of a real estate, coal, asset, or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, there is no credible argument whatsoever to try and go against the sovereignty of Eritrea.
Are you saying that the claims of the Ethiopian government, led by Abiy, saying we want access to that Red Sea port that's in Eritrea, you're saying that won't lead to war?
No. What I'm saying is I don't expect that to lead to war, at least not in the foreseeable future, as far as I'm concerned.
Prime Minister Abiy, on the one hand, has said he wants peace. He said he wants to avoid conflict. On the other, he's vowed to, quote, correct this historic error of the seaport and said, quote, I am 1,000,000% sure Ethiopia will not remain landlocked. The Ethiopian military said recently that it will not hesitate to make any sacrifice to secure access to the sea. How are those not threats?
So I have reason to believe that President Isaias and Prime Minister Abiy will find it in their hearts to find a way to defuse the crisis. Believe me. That's what I believe in.
When you say believe me, this show is not about belief. It's about facts. It's about evidence.
I will tell
Do you have any evidence?
I'll tell you about the facts.
Do you have any evidence that you're ruling? You're saying there's no conflict. Everyone who's worried about conflict right now.
I'll give you the facts. Okay. You know, I recently traveled to Afar region, all the way to Bure.
Yeah.
And I saw concrete asphalt being built by the Ethiopian government. Yeah. Obviously, the Eritrean government also is building their side of the asphalt. So it must have been a recent fallout between the two sides. So if they have made that investment sincerely, and then I cannot rule out the two parties coming together.
People worry about the rhetoric. Many would say this is not about a port. This is about expansionism by the Ethiopian government. Some have said that Abiy is, quote, obsessed with Ethiopia's imperial past, that he wants to march into Eritrea's capital and declare the Red Sea as his border. He wants to be celebrated as the leader who restored Ethiopia's greatness. What do you say to people who say that?
Well, I said as much in the past myself. Now the question is...
Those are all your quotes. You said he was obsessed with Ethiopia's imperial past. You said he wants to restore Ethiopia's greatness. Is that not what you believe anymore?
Well, no. I mean, I don't have any problem with Abiy wanting to restore Ethiopia's greatness, whatever that greatness is. My issue is that sort of claim is not likely to lead to the kind of conflict people fear is going to happen anytime soon.
At the time, when you said it in 2021, you said it would lead to conflict.
I said it in no, I didn't even say it will lead to conflict. That
it will
I said he will take over Asmara.
I understand that's what you're saying. My question is, does that mean you no longer think he's an imperialist warmonger?
No. I think at this point in time he cares more about his image, that he's trying to make differences in domestic politics and all that. So I don't think he will risk the kind of expansionist approach that many people impute to him. But
many people being you.
Well, in fact, I went beyond that he would take over Asmara.
Okay.
He hasn't taken over Asmara.
So are you saying you were wrong about it?
No, he hasn't taken over Asmara.
If war does break out with Eritrea, should Abiy give his Nobel Peace Prize back?
Well, He could.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Let's go back to our panel. Sadali Lema, what do you make of the tensions between Eritrea and Ethiopia? Getachew says, believe me, he's got some insider information. They're not going to go to war. Do you buy that? Are you worried?
I am worried, and I think a lot of people are worried. I think the fundamental problem of the tension today is the alliances that President Isaias Afwerki and Abiy Ahmed created a war pact. And when the Pretoria Agreement was signed, it collapsed. Now the two are looking at each other. But the problem is that I think the Prime Minister made it for the first time a few weeks ago when he said that what they want is a navy base. And it's not just the port access. And this ups the ante.
I want to bring in Sheetal Tronville. You study conflicts. You know both these countries very well. Do you think war is inevitable? Do you think it's avoidable? Do you buy the, should we call it complacency or positivity from Getachew here?
No, I think the war is coming, and it's coming pretty soon. Ethiopia is now posturing and ticking off every box of claiming a right to self-defense, accusing Eritrea of destabilizing Ethiopia, accusing Eritrea of funding and arming militias, the Fano Amhara militias, accusing Eritrea to collude with the Tigrayan government or TPLF in Tigray. The Minister of Foreign Affairs in Ethiopia submitted a letter to the Secretary General of UN, ticking off all of these issues, saying that we will be patient, we want peace, but we are not patient for too long.
Sheetal says war is coming, and he's laying out that the Ethiopian government seems to be making the case for it.
While I agree with his analysis, what I'm saying is war is not necessarily inevitable. The reason why I don't believe war is inevitable is because the region has more than ample experience of turning things around and making the best of bodies out of erstwhile enemies.
Excuse me, Mr. Getachew, the region has also ample experience with war after war after war after war, relapsing to war more than creating sustainable peace.
Let me bring in Bisrat Lamessa. Let me ask you, Bisrat, when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says, we will correct the historic error, the mistake made 30 years ago will be corrected tomorrow. It is an existential issue. That sounds like a guy getting ready to do war.
The government and also the Ethiopian people at large resent a flawed political process through which Ethiopia lost its coastal territories. So the Ethiopian government wants to sit down and discuss that with the Eritrean regime. Now, this is the problem. Eritrea's aggression is not necessarily linked to Ethiopia's quest for access to the sea. The Eritrean government hasn't managed to capitalize on Eritrea's independence and create a functional state that is reliable, predictable, and has institutions. In 2018, the Ethiopian government tried to formalize the expression of interest in friendship into institutionalized agreements.
Well, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia in 2018 recognized the borders.
It was just the borders per the Algiers agreement, but it wasn't necessarily about making corrections to the historical strategic blunder.
We are going to take a short break. In part 2, we will be back with Getachew Reda, with our panel of experts, talking about the Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, his record, his legacy, his human rights issues, and Getachew's relationship with him. Don't go away.
Okay, ክቡራት ተኸታተልቲ ዳርጋ እቶም ኣናሊስት ዝህቡ ፀንሑሲ ፅቡቅ ክስታይ ዝገበርዎ እዩ ዝመስለኒ ብጀካ ዛ ሓደቲ ሎስት ከሲሮም ኣይኮኑም ኣይነበረቶምን ክኸስርዎ ኣይክእሉን እዮም ናንዳማቶም ነይሩ ዋናታት ወሲዶሞ ኣኸለ እቲ ኖርዌጃዊ ዲኹም ትብልዎ ዘለኹም መን እዩ ሚካኤል ብርሃነ ኖርዌጃዊ ትብሎ ፀኒሕካ ነርካ መስለን ተደይተጋግየ እሱ እቲ ፃዕዳ እቲ ሓቂ ነጊሩ እቲ ዘሎ ኩሉ ክሌም ከም ዝገብር ኣብይ ኣሕመድ ኣብ ልዕሊ ኤርትራ ፋይን እዚ ንዓና ኣነ ፅቡቅ እዩ እንደ ድብሎ እቲ ዓለም ደይትፈልጦ ዝነበረት ዓለም ክትፈልጦ በፂሓ ኣላ ካብ ኣዘራሩ ዳሕራይ ካብ ቃላት ሲ ገፅ ወይ ስእሊ ናይቲ ሰብ ርኢኻ እውን ኣበይ ዘሎ ተሓቅሲ ደይትፈልጥ ኣይኮንካን እዚኣቶም ካ ኤክስፐርት እዮም ዋላቶም ድዕዘቡ ዘለውን ባዕሎም ሲ ዋላ ተዓዘብቲ ኩኑ እምበር ኣብ ብዙሕ ከምኡታት ኣትዮም ድዕዘቡ ሰባት ምዃኖም ስዎ ከለካ ትርኢኻ ስጋዕ ክንደይ መርገፂ ዘይብሉ ዘረባ ዛረብ ከም ዘሎ حنت قال نخوص دحر 5 دقائق بابا مبال دحر كزارب كوينو ازي تناي حقنت ديكونسي حاسوت تحقس نتحسوت خمي غير حق امسلا عم حساب نحط اتخونكا كل غيزي مد نغارات الله مالتي سلازي كبرات تقاتلتلو البحر ميديا سقعتها خاليتي بارت جمروا أنا نايبة حقي إمبورتانت خوينو سلت ترأيني مساحون ديسكاس كنقبر الله سلز دولهم أمتي يازلو خلهم سمعهم موتخونيهم كنت بيزغن أنا إيسا قاعد زرقح تباهيلو تمالي قات أمي كأتو سلزي كألبي إمبر تمالي حسيبة يعني ره anyway لو مخوين الله حسابكم كتبوا ويدلكم رديت كتكافلوا نحد لكم here you go أماني he's here
مرحبا مرحبا كما وعلكي دولة الكدير I don't know busy قلي خوانكي مثلاني أبتي دقوة خالي أخزارة كده لنيرا جنزي إذي سواي انتاي مو كلنا ريناينا نحنا ترى كنا تجارب يوم بومول إثيوبيا ريوي حافيروم أنا زجرمني إذي مهدي حسن بحال كما جرام كيف فلت وأبو أتومو يزجرمني يعني سلمت حدا وري زخانة تغطى سواي نون نزي شغلة انتاي لوير كوينو زي فلت نحكي ممهر نحكي تمهراي زي كنا سي ممهر نحكي أبتقراي أبيتي أزنا ورزي جيتاچو vodka تا أتي vodka ساتي تزمسون محاكنير مثلا ورتي منيسو مزرقون يرتزاروا اتوم سلسة زمصوهم كاتو كلهم نحن تعزيكمهم كومنتر تيلي يتيوم سلس يوم نجتاچو كحجزي لهم يوم مس يوم أبو تغطيلهم
تيانا أنتيس ستاندارد بتعمي حيالي
exactly yes نا بالله ده حقتني انت تبلي يا بقى
ساتهم سي غازيتኛታት እዮም ነው ፍሉጣት ጋዜጠኛታት እዮም ንዓኦም ድኾን ሽም እውን ከትርፉ ክእሉ እዮም ዋላ ንዕኡ ክሕግዝ ኢሎም ኣምፂኦሞም ኢልካ ከማን ክስታይ ክትብልሳ ኣይትኽእልን ኢኻ ምክንያቱ እሱ ካብ ዝዛረቦ ከመይ ጌራ ኣንጠልጢላቶ ሪኢኻያ እዚ ኩሉ ኣብ ትግራይ ተገበረሲ እንታይ ድገበርኩሞ ነገር ኣሎ እምበር ንስኻ ትብሎ ዘለኻ ዝተኻእለን መጠን as much as possible ጽዕርኒ ረአ ነቲ ተጋናጠሉ እንታይኩም ትብሎም ቶም ተፋናቀሉ ንምምላስ ምስቲ ዘሎ እንታይ ሞጌርካ ኢላቶ ዋላ ሓንቲ እዝን ዋላ ሓንቲ ካብዚ እውን ድገበርካዮ ነገር የለን ሕጂ ንዕኡ ሲ ክስታይ ኮይኑ እቲ ሓደ ግን ቆርብተይቲ ናይ ዋላ እውን ንዕኡ ዝድግፍ ዘረባ ተዘይተዛረበ እታ ብዛዕባ ናይታ ባሕሪ ኢሉ ክስታይ ምስ ገበረ ናይ ዓሰብ ምስ በለ ግን እታ ኢትዮጵያስ ከም ዝኸሰረታ ኤርትራይድ ዛረብ ዘሎ ምኽሳር ግን ኣይኮነን ነይሩ ኣይነበራን ከሲራታ ደይኮነሲ ደይናታ ስለ ዝኾነት ትረኽባ ክንደይ ትኽእል ማለት እዩ ዋናታታ ከም ዝወሰድዎ ባሕራ
هاي اسغي كما عندي كترديتيا اي اوكي كم تاع تردى اخي حزا انا خاني كما تردي مسلكي اذا سبزي زي مهدي حسن ابزو بوتا يسفوتو اذا حلف فقط عمل ناي زي غازا ناي بالستينيان ايشو كابو كمو غيرو زتغاتا حساب يلن اب بعد سي ان ان بعد قال منصاون غدي فمسلم تاي رئسهم بتنوم بتعمي حيال زغونه ديبيت قبر زكاتا حسابيو تحري دماني اصبقو تو سبجكت اتي شموسي اصبقو يزفلطو كم توم تعاليتهم دي بلا زي زوم يهودا ابزعدي نسوم يوم توم كلهم lawyers politicians قال كله عالم تواصاتي روموزولو ساتومي نسو ودي باكستاني سواي سعدا قال زي كومنتري سعدا يكونن باكستانيو اب عد انجليزيو تمايلو عبيو نايلز اسوزي مهدي هو
مهدي بلا فلته ناي تسعدا بلو نعت نروجاوي حدا
لا نسوي ممكن دحن مايبي تاغاغي وانت رديخ ونخيله جن تسعدا نروجاوي ناي ويانه تاشم خركر زنبره حجي زعلف خلت 3 ورحي ኣዲስ ኣበባ ኣትዩ ይመፅእ ኩርኩር ናይ ኦሮሞማ ኮይኑ ይመፅእ ስለምንታይ እሱ ተኸፊሉ ይዛረብ ኣንጻር ኤርትራዊ ዝበሃል ንሱን እቲ ሓደ እንግሊዛዊ እቲ ብተኣሽሙ ገይሮም ሓደ ሓውና ብኤገሩ ዘበጦ ክልቲኦም ኣንጻር ኤርትራ ፍሉጣት ማርቲን ፕላት ክልቲኦም እዚኦም ፍሉጣት ኣንጻር ኤርትራ ብዝኾነ መገዲ ንምንታይ ስለ ዝኽፈሉ እዮም እዚኣ ናይ ገለ ስታንዳርድ ኢትዮ ስታንዳርድ ዝበልክያ ጸዳልያ ሽማ ኣትን ትግራወይት እያ እሳ ኻኒ ጸረ ኤርትራዊ ናይ ብሓቂ 100% እያ ክንደይ ግዜ ሰምዓ ኩሉ ግዜ ሕጂ እውን ዝሓለፈ ሰሙን ክልተ ሰሙን ኣብቲ ፕሮግራማ ሰሚዐያ ገለ ምስ ሕልቂሳ ዝብሎ እቲ ኦሮሞ ምሻሎ ጥዑይ ገይሩ ዝዛረብ ዘሎ ሕጂ Yes, no, ሓንቲ መርዛም እያ ሕጂ እንታይ ክገብር ደልየ መስልኪ እቲ መጀመርያ መህዲ ንቮድካቸው ብትንትን መሰበሎ ሰለስቲኦም ፈሪሖም ንዕኡ ሳፖርት ክገብሩ እዮም መፅኦም ነይሮም ነቲ ከም ጌታቸው ገይሩ ዝበተኖም ከምኡ ከም ዝብትንዎ ስለ ዝፈልጡ ኣፎም ሒዞም ተጠንቂቖም እዮም ዝዛረቡ ነይሮም Exactly. No. ሰለስቲኦም ከኣቱ ከለዉ ኮመንተርስ ኢሉ ኣትይዎም ከኣቱ ከለዉ ንምንታይ ኣብኡ ኣትዮም ኣልጀዚራ ከፊሎም ኣነ ኣልጀዚራ ንሱ ከም ድላዩ ኣፈኛ ናይ ኦሮሞማ ኮይኑ ንክዛረብ ስለምንታይ እንድሕር ተዓዚብኩም ኮንኩም ካብዞም ኩሎም ንኢትዮጵያ መንግስቲ ወኪሉ ዝመፅእ ወላ ሓደ ፅቡቅ ገይሩ እንግሊዝ ዝዛረብ የብሎምን ሓደ መኒ ጌታቸው እዚ ለፍላፊ ፅቡቅ እዚኣ ክሬዲት ሃብዎ ብጣዕሚ ፅቡቅ እንግሊዝ ይዛረብ ሕጂ ንሱ ክዛረበና ኢሎም ኣምፅኦሞ ድሓረይቶም ሰለስተ ቃኒ ንዑ ክሕግዝዎ ኢሎም እዮም መፅኦም እዚ መህዲ ሓሰን ግን ብገንዘብ ዝግዛእ ሰብ ኣይኮነን ብፍፁም ሰብዓይ ጥራይ ነብሱ እኮ ይምፅዎ ቀጥቂጥዎ ጥራይ ነብሱ ገይሩ ዋይ ከምዚ ሕፍረት ዝኾነ ኢንተርቪው ኣነ ኣብ ሙሉእ ሂወተይ ሪአ ይፈልጥኒ ነበር ኣባሲ ሓብኮፍ እኮ ይብልዎ ኩልና ሪና ኢና ኣነ ንክነግረኩም ዘይኮነሲ ኩልና ተዓዚብናዮ ኩላ ትግራዋይ ርእሳ ድኒና ትኸይ ዘላ እዛ ራያ ርእሳ ድኒና ኢትዮጵያ ብምሎም ርእሶም ኣዲኖም እዮም ዝኾኑ ኣቲ ሙሉእ ኣፍሪቃ እውን ሕፊርዎ ብሓቂ ክንዛረብ ተኮይናሲ ዋይ ኣቲ ወርዳተኛ እቲኦም ሰለስተ ግን ሕግዝዎ ኢሎም ዝመፁ ማህዲ ከምኡ ገይሩ መሰጋለፆም ስራዮም ኣፎም እዮም ኣኪቦም እምበር ካልእ ክዛረቡ እዮም መፅኦም ነይሮም እዛ ሰበይቲ እዛ ፀዳል ዝብልዋ ሓንቲ መርዛን ዝኾነት ሰበይቲ እያ ኩሉ ግዜ እታ ጀኖሳይድ ናብ ኤርትራ ጥራይ ከተላሕማ ትደሊ ንምንታይ ኣብ ካሕሳ ኣብኣን እዮም ዝኣትዉ ኩሉ ግዜ ከማያ ካሳ ቀሲልኩም እቲ ፕሮግራም ተመሊስኩም ስምዖ እቲ ናተይ ኦብዘርቬሽን ከምኡ ስለ ዝኾነ ክሕውሰል ኪለ እዚኣሲ እቶም ሰለስተ ንምንታይ ኣብኡ ተዓዲሞም መፅኦም ኣብ ግምት ከተናዮ ከይንሓልፍ ኢለ ካልእ ኣይኮነን ከመይ ቀኒኺ ኣስቴር ካልእ ፀገም የለን ሎምዓንቲ ኣሞም ዮዲታ ተመፀ ተስፋይ ሙለር ተመፅኦም ፅን ኢላ ክሰምዓኩም እየ ፅቡቅ መዓልቲ ኣስቴር ቀፅሊ ፕሮግራም ቋፂረ ኣቋሪፀ ታንክ ዩ
ፅቡቅ እምበር እተው ኢለ እንዴ ክንቅፅላ ኢና ስጋዕ
Welcome back to Head to Head on Al Jazeera. My guest tonight is Government Minister and an advisor to Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Getachew Reda. Getachew, in part one, we talked about the prospects for war. We talked about your own record in terms of moving over from the TPLF to the current government. Let's talk about the current government. Let's talk about Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, a man who at first was heralded as a reformer. He got a peace prize. He was seen as a fresh leader after decades of oppressive TPLF-dominated rule, your former party. Today, though, under his rule, we're witnessing an erosion of human rights, government clashes with militia groups in Amhara, Oromia, the ongoing killing of civilians, the jailing of journalists and opposition figures. Ethiopia's economy is struggling, poverty is on the rise. Now, as you said in part one, you support the Prime Minister in terms of trying to end conflict, especially abroad. But surely on the domestic front, you could agree that it's not going so well for Abiy Ahmed on the domestic front.
Bulldozing your way out of every crisis is not going to work. So to the extent that I have a role to play, it's as much about addressing the Tigray crisis as trying to give my piece of advice to the Prime Minister. That
what about all the opposition politicians and journalists who are being locked up? You used to be against that back in the day.
Well, I'm still against any such move against opposition leaders.
Well, you're an advisor to the Prime Minister. Have you asked him to release some of these journalists and politicians?
Well, you give me a list and I definitely will do that, believe me.
I'll read to you from the Committee to Protect Journalists from August. Okay. Ethiopian journalists were abducted by masked men. 2 others were detained. We are alarmed by the abduction of Ethiopian newspaper editor Jonas Amari, the arbitrary detention of journalist Qadr Mohammed Ismail, the incommunicado detention of radio host Abdul Samed Mohammed. I can keep going. Should they be released?
They should be released, yeah.
Well, I mean, telling me that's great, but I'm not the Prime Minister of Ethiopia.
Well, I don't exactly know what the allegations against them are.
Why don't you find out?
I once was the information minister. I had been dealing with such kinds of issues. And I don't believe that detaining journalists for their...
ميكيل برهانة بليز تخصتاي كان دحردي كفيت كايا بزت أبين الله مخفات معنا مخفات زي دلوخ خيمس لك تماليسكا قدم تناتكا ميكروفون كاميران خستاي غير كايوتو عطوا ما خمن دغنا جمير كختاتون تخيلكا خستاي غبر ابي الله ديفايس نوت كونكت بلالا
professional work is
what about
acceptable.
the federal MP Christian Tadale, who was taken last year, detained? He's now very ill in prison. His family are very worried about him. He's a member of parliament.
He should have his day in court. Anyone who is accused of any crime should have their day in court, and they should be treated decently.
You have all these tensions in Ethiopia, and some people would say undermines Prime Minister Abiy's very grand vision for unity, which is outlined in a series of books called Medema, which means coming together. Yeah. And Medema in part advocates for ending Ethiopia's division into ethnic states and pushing for a united country. It's very idealistic, very grand. A lot of people have criticized that pan-Ethiopian ideology. Some people call it an assimilation agenda that's been the source of the problems for Ethiopia. Other people call it bullshit. Some people say Abiy has no idea what Medema is. What do you say to those critics?
Well, but the only Medema book I've read is the most recent one. So I gave my my assessment of what the book stands for.
You called it a noble document.
Did I call it a noble document? Yeah. I said it has grand ideas, and the way to put them on the ground, to implement them, would require a serious policy debate. I wasn't endorsing any policy. I was simply saying that he has a vision.
Just to be clear, the people who said it was bullshit and an assimilation agenda that's the source of the problems, and who said Abiy doesn't have any clue about Medema was, drumroll, you.
Madama.
What? What Medema? I mean, I'm talking about the only book I have read, and I commented on it.
So why did you say in 2020 Abiy came up with Medema? He doesn't have any clue about Medema.
No, he had clue about Medema, but I didn't subscribe to what he said in the Medema back then. And I'm not even sure.
Do you still think it's bullshit?
No, I probably have matured enough the last 5 years to avoid the kinds of sweeping characterizations that people make, and I once made.
You're a reformed man.
I wouldn't say reformed, but I have grown up.
You've grown. Just to be clear, when I interviewed you in 2016 for Al Jazeera, you were a government minister, as you mentioned, spokesperson for the TPLF.
For the government, for the federal government.
But you were also in the TPLF.
Yes.
Now you're with the Abiy government, you're anti the TPLF. Next year, who knows where you'll be? People will say, how can we take you seriously?
Well, you should
come out, you're hop.
Because I will tell you this. Once what I contribute, whatever I can contribute to the betterment of the lives of the people of Tigray, if I can do whatever I can to make sure this misguided leadership, this misguided leadership doesn't end up creating the same miscalculation that landed the people of Tigray in the situation,
your goal.
And then I'll be gone.
But gone where? To another party?
No, probably to academia, to writing books and all that. Believe me, I'm not interested in the corridors of power anymore. Even now,
you're not interested in political power, even though you've been in politics for 20-odd years.
Even now, I don't clear my words with the Prime Minister. I don't clear my words with anyone, and I do what I do, and I say it because I think it's in the best interest of the people.
On that note, critics of Abiy say he has a messiah complex. He's once said that he was divinely ordained to rule, that his mother had a vision that he would be the seventh king to unite Ethiopia. An advisor of his said Abiy believes he's God anointed. Has he said that to you? Does he tell you that he's the king?
No, he said it in public. He said it in Parliament, right?
Did he say it to you?
No, he didn't say it to me. As a matter of fact, he was a very close friend even before he got elected. So.
فليتكم اللهم كبرات تقاتلت له البحر ميدا. إذا مهدي قدم حجي انترفيو عقبير وانيري بمولا أنتن ورقة حزواني زولو كافت دبلوز نبرن كابز حجي زبلوز اللون عند إذا سامبو أزجن تمال دبلو خمان سلا يذكر انتاي بالكم زولو رأيه سمعوه أيوة ترى يدلو.
What he said was, Abiy was my close friend.
You hated him. You said he was a genocidal warmonger, imperialist.
Yeah, but
weird friends you have.
That doesn't change the fact that we're friends.
The fact that he's a genocidal warmonger didn't change the fact that you were friends.
No. I'm stating the fact.
Before the genocide, you mean you were friends?
Yes.
And after the genocide, you were friends. Just during the genocide, you weren't friends.
We were fighting each other. We're at each other's
yes, and thousands of people.
No. I mean, let's not belittle the whole idea of this genocide, whatever. What I'm saying
not the one belittling. You're the one who said you used to be friends with the guy you.
No. He didn't tell me personally that he was a messiah or anything.
Do you believe he's a messiah?
He said his mother told him he would once be a king.
Do you believe Abiy was chosen by God to rule Ethiopia?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
Have you told him that?
I haven't. I don't have to tell him.
I mean, you kind of do. He thinks he is, and you're an advisor. Advisors normally give advice.
I don't believe God has a specific choices or whatever to lead. As long as you think you can lead the country and you prove your mettle, you can be leader.
Has he proved his mettle?
He has yet to prove his mettle.
He's been in office for several years. He's still yet to prove his mettle.
This is my position. Okay. I'm not in the business of settling accounts on his behalf. I'm not in the business of.
And if he watches this interview and he sees his advisor saying he's yet to prove his mettle and he may be guilty of genocide, do you think he'll fire you or keep you on?
Honestly, I'm not. I don't really care what happens as a result.
Trust me.
Result of that. But I have reason to believe that saying those things in public does not necessarily lead to the kinds of consequences. But like I said, I don't care what happens.
I live in a country where the leader thinks he's also a king. So let's go to our panel. Sidale Lema is editor of the Addis Standard newspaper. Abiy came to power as a reformer, self-styled. You wrote a New York Times editorial a few years ago titled, "He promised peace, then he tore the country apart." What do you think his legacy is as a prime minister?
Exactly what you just said now. Look, we might be discussing about the crisis in the Tigray region, but Ethiopia began to get engulfed in wars soon after he came in Oromia regional state, his own turf, right? And in Amhara region today, in Oromia, the wars continued there. There's no indication whatsoever to end them through political settlement. We have seen assassinations of the likes of Hajalu Hundesa, the likes of Bati Orgesa, men who should not have been assassinated, under the watches of the same prime minister. Naturally, wars tear societies apart. And when you also oversee the assassination of prominent figures and refuse for any independent investigation, for the truth to come out, you are sowing the seeds of bitterness within your own communities. What the Tigray war did to us is finish that work. We are not anywhere close to coming together. Every fabric of Ethiopian society was torn apart, and there is no turning back.
We're being torn apart, no signs of coming together. Do you agree with that?
What the Tigray conflict has done is, like she said, create a sense that people maybe after all don't see any hope. So what we have to do is to make sure that whatever chance there is to salvage and a semblance of unity needs to be put together. And whatever effort I'm going to make, first and foremost, is about protecting the interests of the people of Tigray, and of course to ensure that Ethiopia doesn't continue to slide. It takes engagement with whoever is in charge, Prime Minister Abiy included, to arrest this development, not to just complain about.
This government has shut down various initiatives to get justice and accountability. That's a fact.
How are we gliding around this if we ever need to come together as a society?
No. What I'm saying is, in the context of Pretoria, for example, whether transitional justice and everything, transitional justice is not just about Tigray, it's about the entire country. It needs to be fully implemented. That's my position. I know that the challenge, but we have to engage the federal government anyway.
There are other challenges related to that. Bisrat Lamese is an independent researcher, runs the think tank Nexus Forum for Research and Dialogue. Bisrat, what do you say to people who worry there won't be free and fair elections in Ethiopia next year, that Abiy is an autocrat? What is your response to them?
Well, I don't think that's a fair assessment. Trying to put everything on Abiy as the architect of the vision in Ethiopia is either it's a cynical attitude or it's failing to understand Ethiopia's complex history, tensions around ethnicity, religion, ideology, and throughout its history, it's been accumulating problems after problems after problems. In 2018, the Prime Minister ascended to power because everybody, including TPLF leaders, recognized that the country was inching towards implosion, and change was necessary. But let me tell you one thing. People usually talk about the euphoria that happened in 2018, but that hid two divergent political forces. One that blamed TPLF for its monopolistic approach and sought more ethnic autonomy. They expected that from the Prime Minister. The other one said ethnic federalism is the root of all our problems, and he's supposed to shred the constitution, dismantle the structure, and bring in something new. Now, this is the Ethiopia that the Prime Minister inherited, but that is where the transitional justice framework comes in. Let's confront our past, reconcile, move on. That is where the National Dialogue Initiative comes. Let's come together and do a bottom-up approach.
Let me bring in Kjetil Tronvoll, is Professor of Peace and Conflict Studies at Oslo New University College. Kjetil, there's this phrase that's now doing the rounds, mega, make Ethiopia great again. Abiy's been associated with this phrase. Some people think mega is just a way for Abiy to, push his own agenda, big up himself, self-aggrandizement. What do you make of what he's trying to do with Ethiopia? Is he trying to restore some form of greatness, bigger boundaries, bigger borders? What is his goal in your view?
I think all of the above is his goal. Will he succeed? Probably not, because he's repeating the mistakes as done by earlier emperors and governments in Ethiopia. Every time a government is trying to centralize power in Ethiopia, it creates counterforces from the regional states or from the ethnic groups, call it whatever you want. And in addition to the centralization process, Abiy is also trying to impose all-embracing Ethiopian identity, using a language and a rhetoric harking back to an imperial time, which is very provocative for the gentleman sitting next to you, and that ideology from the Tigray People's Liberation Front, from the Oromo Liberation Front, and from others. So he's trying to create something which has failed 2 times before, and I think it will fail again.
Is mega provocative to you? Is this idea of of subsuming ethnic identities into one pan-Ethiopian ideology, does that worry you? You used to call him imperial, as we've discussed tonight.
No, that's such a project is not going to work, whether it comes from Abiy, from TPLF, or from whoever it is who promotes such agenda. It's not going to work because...
You're not worried about the centralization of power that Kjetil identified?
No, but I haven't abandoned any of the misgivings that I had when the centralization of power led to the kinds of conflicts. What I am saying is whatever is going to work in Ethiopia should take into account the diversity of the country. We had this assessment back in EPRDF days before Abiy came to power, that the problem was a question of striking a perfect balance between maintaining an Ethiopian nationality while at the same time maintaining the level of autonomy that ethnic groups or nations and nationalities should have. And unless you maintain that perfect balance, then any project is doomed to fail. That's my position. And that is the kind of advice I would give him anyway.
Okay, let's go to our very patient audience here in the Conway Hall in London. If you have questions for Getachew, please do raise your hands and I will come to you. We'll go to the lady here at the front.
Domestic accountability has never happened in modern history in Ethiopia. And there were several international initiatives that were started and then ended because of the federal government's involvement internationally. The AU is one example, the United Nations was another. And then this was replaced by the domestic mechanism that we still haven't seen any prospects from. And so I'm asking, as someone who was working at Amnesty International during the conflict, looking and working with the victims of that conflict was one of the most heartbreaking experiences of my life. You were there in person. What do you say to those people now in terms of the future of their justice accountability prospects?
Okay. Well, I would say the very nature of the war, especially when it comes to Tigray, is such that just domestic responsibility alone would not be able to take care of the issue of justice and accountability. There were all sorts of assortment of groups that were involved in the crimes, and to just assume that transitional justice that only takes into account, assuming that it's going to be implemented, will take care of all of the crimes.
There was an African Union Commission, there was a UN Commission. The Ethiopian government lobbied to have them shut down.
Well, I cannot speak for the government because this happened while I was arguing against it. What I'm saying is there needs to be...
You would like to see those commissions still around?
And there needs to be an international component to the quest for justice.
There was. And the guy you work for lobbied to shut it down.
Okay, I'm not going to cry over spilt milk. What I'm saying is, now that you don't have those institutions, we need to have an international component.
So what are you calling for? What is that? Are you calling for an international tribunal, international investigation? What are you calling for?
I don't have the specifics, but yeah, some kind of tribunal. Yeah, that involves, of course, the involvement of that involves international actors.
Is that your personal view or is that the government's view?
That's my view. I am an advisor. I'm not a policymaker. This is the same advice I would proffer to the government. What I'm saying, there needs to be an international component because the crimes involved international actors as well.
It got shut down by the government you work for. Let's go back to the audience. So I go to that gentleman at the back.
So Donald Trump claims that he solved 8 wars, and one of them was between Ethiopia and Egypt. He said that he ended it, but there really was no war between Ethiopia and Egypt. So he's lying, right?
Yeah.
I have reached that point of time when I don't have to make more enemies. So I'm not going to say anything about President Trump. But to the extent that he has solved any war between Ethiopia and Egypt, I would say it must be war of words. Even that is far from addressed as far as I am concerned.
But there was no war between Egypt
and... There was no war, but
he goes around saying it's one of the 8 wars he solved.
The war of words has been going on for quite some time.
So Donald Trump solved a war of words between Ethiopia and Egypt.
Stick to your characterization.
Those are your words. I'm just summarizing.
Yes, he hasn't solved a war between Egypt and Ethiopia.
Thank you very much.
Because there was none.
That was good. We're in agreement. Finally tonight, we're in agreement. Gentlemen in second row.
My question is, moving forward, the Ethiopian government is hoping to hold the next election, I think in next June, and I understand you have a new party called Simrat, which is Tigray Liberal Democratic. Could you please explain what is being prepared in terms of you taking part in the election? And thank you.
This party was established simply to make sure that the movement for change in Tigray doesn't fizzle out because of the reckless leadership of the TPLF or whatever is left of it. So we are trying to fill the gap, but we also know that we cannot repeat what the TPLF leadership, myself included, had been doing, which is, of course, totalitarian control of the Tigrayan public.
Lady in the glasses. Yes, do you want to stand up?
Thanks very much. On your watch as regional president, your new allies were responsible for more deportations, for more killings, for more massacres. You know that your new allies in Western Tigray, who are still administering that area, have been accused of ethnic cleansing on a massive scale. You know that they are still responsible for brutalizing that population, including keeping women in sexual slavery. So I want to know what it is that you, with this miraculous power that you're now going to wield, are going to do to keep those people safe, especially in the absence of any prospect of justice or accountability.
Well,
thank you.
You should know better that holding the people, the IDPs hostage, is a tactic that has been employed by the leadership in Magale, in Tigray. And well, while I had issues with federal government on some of the issues they were raising, we still were in agreement as interim Tigray administration with the federal government to go through that process of repatriation of IDPs. But the TPLF leadership, minus me, decided that without their former administration going to the picture, they would not accept that. This is pretty much what happened.
There were 3 times of redisplacement, 3 times of attempts for safe passage of the displaced individuals, and all 3 times they were redisplaced again. We were there reporting it.
No, you know,
it's not the lack of.
I know where you're coming from. What I'm saying is we had a series of negotiations with the federal government. We had decided on a number of steps to be taken care of, which not just me, but also the very people who were in charge of the implementation of the process were in perfect agreement with. But unfortunately, the political leadership would have none of it.
Let's go
That's
to
what
the lady who's
happened.
been waiting patiently in the red.
Splinter groups in Araya and Afar are undermining the peace and recovery in Tigray and distracting from justice and accountability in Tigray. Will you advise the PM to stop arming the splinter groups and the insurgents and focus his attention on implementing COHA, since that's been neglected for all these years?
The focus should be, both for the Prime Minister and for all of us involved, to the fullest possible implementation of the cessation of hostilities agreement. Well, I would beg to differ when it comes to your assessment of what's happening in Afar. I'm totally against any armed move against anyone, including the very people who ousted me, to use his word. But
Getachew, you're accused of supporting these splinter groups as well.
No, I'm not.
The Tigrayan Peace Forces, are you involved with that?
The Tigrayan Peace Force, you know, my understanding of the Tigrayan Peace Force is a resistance against the kind of totalitarian moves by the TPLF leadership, and they are there to make sure that they don't have the wherewithal to launch another.
So you are involved with that group?
No, I'm not involved in that group. Whoever does that, I would support only if they are focused on making sure that TPLF leaders are not going to be used by the Eritrean regime to further destabilize the country, because at the end of the day, what the Eritreans are calculating is to bring the conflict into Tigray and other parts of Ethiopia, so that whatever ambitions Abiy might have, they could get away scot-free.
Getachew, next year Ethiopia will hold a federal election. You've started this new party, as we heard earlier, Simret. You've been in Ethiopian politics for almost 2 decades. Like a lot of other Ethiopian politicians, you've promised a lot of change, haven't delivered that change, as we've discussed tonight. Isn't the best path for peace and stability in Ethiopia, for people like yourself and Abiy, who've been around for a while, to just retire from politics and let a new, untainted generation take?
For myself at this point in time, you are right about me and my colleagues to have to leave the scene and hand over to whoever is capable of understanding the situation on the ground and resolving issues without being tainted by whatever ugly past we have.
Why did you just found a new political party?
Let's just say I had to ability, whatever support I have in Tigray, I need to lend that to the party. And rest assured, I will not be running for any specific office.
On that note, I will have to say, Getachew Reda, thank you so much for joining us on Head to Head tonight. Thank you to our panel of experts here, and thanks all to our audience here.
زيادة تبهال سو أكيد كوردت يا بعدها المتاخة يا جرمدين ملي حوين بعدها المتاخة يا قدم ما يا جرمدين أتينير مثلني سو انتي تبلو لك احترا بلنا حد ساعة لاتني
اوكي سلام كما يوعدكم
يا بير مسجن
حجي انت ايو انا وچو تغلبتكايو وچو تغلبتكايو وچو زبحال كلهم تفلطوا انا كل شعوني بليه اسخون تسمعيو قالي كاباي اسخون منا اسيمبر نحناس بزح زبن سلازرعنا حاسيخا كتعوت حاسيخا زخونه ነገር ክትገብር ንምخسبካ ዘይትገብሩ ሓሶት የለን ኣብኣቶም سقع بعلنا يرأس ولن كيل ندحر ريخم تاريخ ولدنا وعل توعي لهم بزي حدث أقام كما يقرنا نأسركم نحن نيترا تبسينا كما يقركم تأسرنا كما نحن توعي لنا توعي لهم حزب إرترام وانت يقوم كترئينا انت يقوم كتقبر لكم نخلي بيا بقرها مقعسي انكا سقع إبهان كومرهم كتكون دلدلهم بعلهم كتأسروا إلوهم حزبي نو توعينا عندنا نوريو إلهم كيدهم مسأسروهم توعينا كم من قستات كوي ناسي كما يداكم دي كتقبروا سوالوهم أي ني إرتراوي حسيخا محلكات إحلكا حسكا مئسار ندرهخا أغلهبكا حاريدكا مبلعسي حاتيات يبولون أزيت رح كمان أقول تمرتك خورنا نيرو كالي أشحات بزحات اللون ديهم إرتراوان كتاين نقبر شالك آداوت ولا قرقس أبقزي الصورة نقفا خير كزرارب أبزغد اللوان سراويت إثيوبيا كما يكون متقبر لك خمت الرأس ولا نكيلت ولا مهزب إرترا انتهي اللي خاخت كيد بعال خاخت السر بعال خاخت قتلت خير لها ورا تسألي كان هاتوا هايلو نو اساتهم كوما ايكونون إلو خيدو لك كم تازبلا هزبي إرترا نبولو مريحنة إرترا أب صورة أوان أقبروا علوا 4 معالت أو صنحو تزراريبهم أي تسامعون كمان تسامعون سكوت صبغي تسامعين أي لم سدوه تبل أي تسامعون بسلام تملشو حجي نحنا كايدا أزي إزمسل نحادا سب قتيلكا زمت لوت يلن حصر بوليتيكا أيو إلي إذا أمن بوليتيكا إرترا أفاد أطرا هزبي إرترا حصر بوليتيكا سيركات ريت مساد نحادا سب حانيكا مقتال نحادا سب كوم زنوار زخونا مفتح سلازي متصئ إذا عينة رديت اللو هزبي إرترا نبل دحان منقست إرترا سلازي اتحسوت بزيحيو تقم كوين زلقن نحنا عينا إرتراويان كلهم دوم زي مخالنا حجيز قرا قيتا شورة داز بلوت اللو نبوزحات من سي إرترا يدنق كمخاني ردانيو نون عايا يدنقنني عايا يسرقنيو مو ألس تطعم ليو صبوك جن تقاذيت أنيا كوم دي قرو خعلو خلو وإزيوم ديم تم إثيوبياويان قدست إثيوبيا برغت إثيوبيا ناي هايمانتكم دي إثيوبيا أتفلت نيرا قدم أبكم دي أتيقا تمالينا عاقين تايب لك نيرو لو مخي حجينا عاقي أب زقوخاني بوتا مزبط أخي أب تحت إقرق مسودق انتايب لك كله إتوم دك وطاقون نوزي انتر بقبر لو قيتا شوردا صباح خان قليان انتر بقبر يوم دحط صباح خان قليهم اندا تفلت إتو قدوم بحصوت منبار بحصوت حزب مسلام بحصوت حسيخة هاجر حماق تاريخ كله خمد الله مقبار مخانو إتي خالي حزبون كفولتهم نعيط بقى يزبل نحنا قن كالتفنا عينا كنفلت سقبعنا نيرو موائلهم أبكم ذي ساتهم حاسيهم إرتراد زخول بستبه ليه جيراتو ديا الشباب تحق ذيا أبايدا واقحو تراقفو يت بايدا بون دينا أتنا أدخلنا صومال دينا أتنا قدم كيني حاجات من السياسة اللي تقولنا كوموديو زخونا جبتو كويب لمن كل إيلو منا طرح إيلو معراباوان ناساتهم قداي كساسيو بإيلو منا إرترا كندي حماقن كندي سقاين حلفا بحصوت طرح يوم الصوم زنوبرو نحنا عينا قلطفنا كلنا مدلنا ولا حجوت عرقي قلز روا قلز بحال الله كاب منقس يرتران إلا علي نحنا عين فلتن ولا 0.5 سنتيم كمان عين فلتني عني ناتكا قبر كيتوب لنخا ناتكا يون زرب 0.5 سنتيم عين فلتني عني يزرب الليل إزارب ذلهو أقباب حاليه نايزي مديحة كبري نايزي هزبي كبري حاليه ارتزاري به أخولي نعيلي إذا أمن عقمي قد نايتهم صنها عقمي نايتو فطرة عقمي الزرار با سلازي كلهم دوم ألنا ولا زخونا يخون من قست يرترا كل سلاز فلتهم كل لاوشتهم سلاز فلت أفات أطرهم سلاز فلت اتهم بتمريحنا تزلون كلهم آياتاتنا دارقا مع ولدنا والنعي اللو نعهاتكم زي كوناس نعهاتكم كلهم ولدكم يوم إذ يوم كل نسلز فلتوا كابز أنا زريون سمعون زعزبون كالو تسخاتكم سعزبون كاوني لعلى سلز فلتوهم دا أمبر ولا حجون كعرقوا اندحر كوينهم ناي حسوت عرقيه ፍጹም ኤርትራ ትበሃል ነገር ከይረኸቡ ክነብሩ ኣይክእሉን እዮም በዓላቶም ከም ዝበሉና ደቅና ክሰርሕዎ እዮም ከም ዝበሎ ኣይነብሩን እዮም እዚኣ ከይትኸውን ግን ቀጻሊ ኤርትራዊ ኣብ ልዕሊኡ ዝፍጸምን ኤርትራ ንምንታይ ከምዚ ኮይና ዲክቴተር መንግስቲ ዝብል ቀደምከ ኣብ 1950ታትን ከ ኣቦታትና ብሓጎታትና ዲክቴተር ዲዮም ነይሮም ትጋገለኻ መንእሰይ ኤርትራ ኢልና ኣብዚ ኩላህና ተንዛረብ ቀጻሊ ንዕኡ ተነንቀሳቅሶ ዝሓሸ ይብል ኣነ ምክንያቱ ኣብ 1950ታትን 52 እኳ እዩ ሊብያን ሶማልያን ነፃ ክብሉ ከለዉ ኤርትራ ኣብ ኢትዮጵያ ክትቁረን ከላ ኤርትራ ኣብቲ እዋን ስታ ዝለዓለት እያ ዋላ ካብ ኣዲስ ኣበባ ግደፍዮም በዓል ሊብያ በዓል ሶማልያ 0.5 ሳንቲም ይነበሮም ዝኸበርኩም ህዝቢ ሶማል ተቐሚጠን ዲ ኣነ 5 ዓመት ስለዚ ኤርትራ ግን ኣስመራ ከተማ ሕጃታ ዝበለፀት ሃገር እያ ነራ ብብቕዓታን ብፅሬታን ብኳሊትነታን ዋላ ካብ ኢትዮጵያ ስለዚ እዚ እትስርሖም እሞ ዲክቴተር ኣይትበሉ ኣነ ክደግ ዝህዛሪበ እሞ ኣሌብሮዲ ኣሜሪካ ምምሃር ከሊእና ምንባር ከሊእና ወፂና ፍቆድ ኣንጎሎ ደኝ ህንዳ ሒዝ ዝኸበርካ መንእሰይ ፍቆድ ኣንጎሎ ለዩኒቨርሲቲ ኮሌጅ ተኻንኩም ሕጂ ዘይትመሃሩ ክብሎም ከለኹቶም ሓሳብ ዝህቡ ነበሩ ፍቲ እዋን ንሱ እሞ ሕጂ ዳ ስድራና ክንሕግዝ ከምዚ ኮይንና ከቢድና ኖ ጋዜጠኛ ተወልደ ወልደ ገብርኤል ኤርትራዊ ፍታ ሬድዮ ኣሜሪካ ዝነበረ ሒት ዓጥያ እንዲያታ ሬድዮ ኣሜሪካ 2 ሰዓት ከይዱ ጥራሕ ይመሃር ነይሩ ጋዜጠኝነት ስለ ዝሰርሕ በኣ ን10 ዓመት 2 ሰዓት ተመላሊሱ ዶክተር ኣቢሉ ከምዚኣ ክንገብር ንኽእል ኢና ኣብሎም የኑ ብዙሓት ስለዚ ንምንታይ ኢና ንሕና ብሓሶት ተቐቢርና ኩለን ነፃ ክወፃ ከለዋ ስጋብ ትማሊ እሞ ንስኻ ብደምካን ብህይወትካን ኢና ሃገር መስሪትና ነፃ ወፂና እሞ ንምንታይ ይመስለኩም እዚ እኮ ይትጠንቁ ኢልና ንዕኦም ክንጉስጉስ ከነባራብር ክፈልጥዎ ከም ዘለዎም እንተ ንገብር ዝሓሸ ይብል ይቐኒየለይ እንተ ትድውልለይ ከዓ ኣስቴር 2 ግዜ ደውልልኪ ኣይመለስክለይን ኣነ ደልየ ክለኹም ደውልለ ኣኺ ሕድሪ ሰላም ቦታ ከይሕዘልኩም ቴንክ ዩ
ኦኬ ቴንክ ዩ ኣያ ገረመኒ ያ እዞም
ኣስቴር ሰሚዕክ ንድኺ ደውልለ ክትብል መልእኽተይ
ዋ ሰሚዕካ ያ ገረመኒ ክደውላልካ
ኦኬ ቴንክ ዩ
ቴንክ ዩ እታ ሓንቲ ቴሌፎን ክድውሉ ከለኹም ኩልኹም ክቡራት ተኸታተልቲ ሉል ባሕሪ ሚድያ ኣብዚ ኣላትኩም ቴሌፎን እታ ናይ ስራሕ ቴሌፎን ምክንያቱ እንታይ ገይረ ኣለኹ ኩላ ዓፀየ ኣለኹ እታ ሓንቲ ቴሌፎን እታ ናይ ፕሪቫት ቴሌፎን ዓፀየ ኣለኹ ምክንያቱ ሰብ ኣብዘይ እዋኑ እንዳ ገሊኦም ትቐትሪ ኣባኹም ኣባና ለይቲ ስለ ዝኾነ ኣብዘይ እዋኑ ሓንሳብ ብዙሕ ቴሌፎን ስለ ዝድወለኒ ክድቅስ ኣይክእልን ወይ እውን ቆልዑት ኣለዉ ክርበሹ ኣይደልዮምን ክምልስ ኣይክእልን ማለት እዩ በዚኣ እንድሕር ደው ኢልኩም ግን ኣብ ግዜ ስራሕ ስለ ዝኾንኩ ዘለኹ ኣብ ግዜ ስራሕ ከለኹ ክምልሰልኩም ወይ እውን ኣገዳሲ ነገር እንድሕር ኮይኑ ከዓ ዋላ ቀትሪ ተኮይኑ እውን በዚኣ ተፃሒፋ ዘላ ኣብዛ ክስታይ ዘላ ብኣ ክትድውሉለይ ብትሕትና ሓተኩም እታ ሓንቲ ደላትኩም ብፍላይ ሰዓታት ሪኢኹም ለይቲ እንድሕር ኮይኑ ደስ ብለኒ እንድሕር ደይ ተደዊሉ ኣያ ገርመድክን ግን ክድውለልካ ይረሓን እታ ክስታይ ስለዝዓፀኽዎ እዩ ንኸውን ኣቢካ ኩላ ዓፀዮም ምክንያቱ ለይቲ ሓንሳ ሰዓት 1 ሰዓት 2 ሰዓት 3 ናይ ለይቲ ይድወል ጭር ትብል በቃ ስኦ ኢላ ክስታይ ትኸውን ክምልስ ግን ኣይክእልን እየ ለይቲ ምድሪ ማለት እዩ ያ ብጣዕሚ ፅቡቅ ኣያ ገርመድን ኩሉ እቲ ሓሳብ ሰሚዕና ኣለና ሓደ 2 ኣብዚኣ ክስታይ ትኸውን ኣላ ዋላ ሓንቲ ኩላ ሓደ እዩ ዋላ ንኣምን እውን መርሓባ ወልካም ኣፈንዲ ሚድያ ኢሉ ፅሒፉ ናይቲ ኣብ ኩሉ ዝኸድዎ ከምኡ ክስታይ ትብል ኢኻ ኣነ ከማን ከምኡ ኢለ ብኣፈይሲ ክቡራት ተኸታተልቲ ኣፈንዲ ሚድያ ክብል ሉል ባሕሪ ሚድያ እብል ኣብቲ ናታ ሚድያ መፅስ ንክዛረብ ክስታይ እቲ ልምዲ እዩ ስለዚ ኣብዚኣ ርኤኩም ኣለኹ እንደ ሓደ 2 ትፀሓሓፍ ስለ ዘለኹም ፀገም የብሉን ኩልና ሓደ ኢና ኣይትሸገሩሉ ማለት እዩ ኦኬ እሱ ዝሰማዕናዮ እንድዩ ግን ሓንቲ ናይ መን ክጋብዘኩም የመሲልኩም ነዛ ናይ ጌታቸው ረዳ ተስምዕስ እዚኣ እስከ መስማዕ شو دحري أحد صار بزعبات ناي أمريكا الله مرحبا إسحاق يا خيلي أجمل مساكين هذا يفلطوا يا معاتم زياتهم هذا يوم تدهر يا هجد حيش إذا بقطة نجيتها ردا طبعا حتملكت مخناتو أبزيك لهم ما تصوبوا تيم أوات إيرم ناوشتو خمز درجح كم زحفر كم زدنن جيرما محفرس لازم جن ولا نتاج جونسايد من جباري أموهانون دافلته نهزبو أتقعو شم أبي أحمد كيت اللعل بعلومات إذا بعلو خستا يكبر بزبل ملسي أتقعوا نزح عيفو مخد نيرم تقارو ما تدحزنك كخا نعي كدحنو خلو كو خنديما إساياتهم حليفهم قبل كله انت خوينا من كرأي ودي قالوا كلهم نعو خبلو لهم نزح عند جيجرع هيوتو كدحنو خبلو لهم زت أف من إساياتسي حج حلافناتون وين ود بشاشة خيق أين كبلن وغير ويت تجبرة تجيريو بحق خا التحاز ويكا بحق خا حتى تلكاب كندي حلفها بالكام هافسي نحن تنفاس كبلسي هذا نتبع مجتمع إسيات زت أف تجري تغلى الله حلوة نخن بعد زي أتوم أمينكا كما يجير كأخنا مثلا قد كاتخيد كم بعلقيتاتشو انكو عن تجار انكو عرح أقولهم مخناتو ما قبلهم كله تجري كتكون على لوا دبلو خزوح لهم كله خا عبا إثيوبيا دبلو نحر كوينهم تجريون ولا حنتي نسبة تجري خن تجري تبهال كل لون تغمية باللون سلازي ام بجكان هاي نفسهم خالد دحمهم من نجر ولا حنتي إلا أبدا يا جرمدهين كاني نحنا نفلط أمينا زين كل جزء بحسوا أنا حجتها ناتو دس زبلتني كم زيلو تواطيرو أنا الرأي إني ربزو حقوق زور النبرة رهبسي بس بيسول لهون حاف مسبلسي كم زي بامبر غير كالو دخب دقال عاطي شنت مسملة طويت وين دابلو خد لو خمس زبل عقوس كم زي جربع كم ملي تسيلو جيتا تشور دب بزي ترتر مستدلو وشكوريا مستخستين شينو تسيلو مخنياتو خمزي عينت موتار أقات إمو يفلتني الصوت أنا إمال حسن يا بهلا عندي of course إنجليشو مصنعي ولا حدا دوادا درايكونن أفتنا إثيوبيا خفتم لسمعنا يوم سي بعلا أبي أحمد تصحف لهم كمان كان بوزي كله خبز خوايدي حشوهم رينا يومينا السجن تزاربايو كلت ناي زربالو ناي حصوت عمل كأب ديجرت مرة أسبي بحصوت كله زيتات زمقلال عن كا ود بشاشاس كم زخر بيتي نو تفت بلو نيرو سقع خنديو زنعقم زبلون نيرو حجة مالي سوف تحتي أخوينها نتام ولد نتات ولد الله عد خمان ملس ما هبسين الله سلازي بسماي بوتا يبلو بمدر بوتا يبلو تم تشكي ماما زخدو زنبارو لقالك من أسيات قد يفهم نمتا كمنا تم مرقن كمان يوصني السوزي أنا مونيت ما عيم اللسني أنا I can guarantee موت طخنا حج نحرت ماليسو نايب حق أخفتي أنا إلى دتوع أخاف كذا ما يسامبو إلى ندي دتوع لبر بحال يقولون بيجاك سامبو سلازي أبا حقيرو كتافي دم الله صلى أبنت ولا حنت يقولون هلا يسلازو خنا قد انت قبرنا ما يدون كان بزعبانا حلفنا تينايك ستايك ملا سيلون نحرت ماليسو هو من كلي هو همزة قرط السقا جيرم ميت عم دابزحو كم ما طعمت وين قدي بالكم يما لسكاي كتا اويات حزب لهم ملستزبلو انت جرايمو تجراي جيرو محوي تزبلو صبغ نيره مرحبا مولي حوي مولي
مرحبا نفس السج أبتباك السج بالكروي ثاني حنا بسي بخميكو
ريك عجن غاتي عنده أعطي خانير كم سيا جرمد هنجن صراحة خازل خمس لما مكينا
أتيس و صراحة درسعك وخا ني أخي بقول صراني رات نسي
أوكي
هجي بغلتي انت واتر جن بقولوا درجة سنة يا سنة أي قلنا actually نايتي دروس أسمع كم دو نايتي دروس تايكم دولو
أنا عاسي إنا ياسي حنت لك أنا عاتمثل قبلك كمان حسيبة سدد الليتا درا مخنياتو بزح نيروس
أوكي
رخباي كالكم
يا جيتاچو تدحفر يلو ما actually مجمريا تسمع تقارو بتعميم حفيرو برهان خي ترف يا حفيرو كاولي حيش نسي ولا برهاني يحفيرنا خم تقراواي صحافيري يلو يجي بتعمل حفريو خم تقراواي تراي كون كم سب كم افريقيا غان حفري مهنياتو كم ذا عينت وردت اب عركي كجنسايد كقبر كل عركي نيرو لحد جنسايد روح مسكونا قليل كان زربا دو يمتسيو جنسايد تكون جنسايد تخصص تكون كخصصو هيكون نقول نعاخ بتعمكا صراحة كم دلخ يدخلوا له حزب تግራይ منيو حزب تግራይ ዝበሃል ይኮና መንጎ መዛረብ ኮይኑ ደሎ anyway ነናቶም አጀንዳ ይሕዞም ማህዲ ግን ተማም ገይሩ ይቀጥቅጥዎ ተዘሕፍር ቴድሮስ ዕውር ኢልዎ ከምዛ ዓይነት ሞት ርኢ ይፈልጥን ኢሉ ጌታቸው ሳልሳይ ጊዜ ክመውት ርእዮ ሰብ ኣብ ዓለም ሓንሳቢ ድመውት ጌታቸው ግን ኣብ መቐለ ብትግርኛ ሞይቱ አዲስ አበባ ኣትዩ አዲስ አበባ በአማርኛ ሞይቱ እጂን ዓዲ እንግሊዝ ከይዱ ድማ ኣብ ማእከል ዓለም ስጣሕ ኣቢልና ሳልሳይ ጊዜ ሞይቱ ከመይ ዓይነት ሞት ናይ ሰብ ዝመው ዘሎ ምርዳእ ኣቢኒ እንታይ ክኾን መጨረሹ ኢልዎ ምክንያቱ መቐለ ወልሓንቲ ከይስለጠ ፕሬዚዳንት ተባሂሉ አዲስ ኣበባ ኣትዩ አዲስ ኣበባ ኣማኻሪ ተባሂሉ ኣማኺርካዮ ሌላ ተዋጥሮ ነይራታ ሰበይቲ ተሪእኻ ሕጂ ከተማኽሮ ዶ ተኽሲ ንከይገብር ኣብ ትግራይ ተማኽሮ ዶ መልሲ ይብሉን ኣዲት እንዳበለ ይልሓልፎ ነይሩ ምክንያቱ ወላ ሓንቲ ማኺርዎ ይፈልጥኒ ኣማኻሪኻ ኣይኮነን ነዚ ናይ ኤርትራ ጉዳይ ክሕዘሉ ኢሉ ኣብታ ቦታ ኣምፅኦ ዘሎ እንታይ ከማኽሮና ኣብይ ምክሪ ዝሰማዕ ኣይኮነን ኣብይ ብሕልምን ያድኡ ዝኸይሰብ እዩ ቲንከር ኣይኮነን ወላ ሓንቲ ሓስቦ ነገር የብሉን ፊቸር ሓስብ ኣይኮነን ናይ ብሓቂ እቲ ኦሮሞ ዝበሎ ኣብይ ኣሕመድ ኣብ ኤርትራ ሰብ ከምዘየለ እዩ ዝኣምን ነዚ ዝረአየ ሰራዊት ንዑ ከማን ከምዘይ በቃ 1 ሚልዮን ድኾን ሰብ ኣምፅሲ ዕልቕልቕ ኣቢለት ነቲ ህዝቢ ክበልዖ ዝብል እምነት ናይ ልቢ ኣብ ውሽጡ ዘሎ ክገብራ ከም እሱ ጥራይ ግን ሓስባ እዚኣ እቶም ካልኦት ኣብ ከባቢ ዘለው ኦልሬዲ ዕሱባት ስለ ዝኾኑ ሓንቲ ክገብሩ ስለ ዘይክእሉ እዮም እምበር እቲ ሓሳብ ቅቡል ኮይኑ ይኮነን ስለዚ ናይ ጌታቸው ረዳ ንትግራይ ጥራይ ኣይኮነ ንኢትዮጵያ ጥራይ ኣይኮነ ንኣፍሪቃ ይወሪድዋ ከም ሰብ እንድሕር ትሓስብ ኮንካ ከምዚ ዓይነት ሰባት ኣብ ሓደ ናይ 20 ዓመት ኣብ ክልተ ዴኬት ኢልዎ ናብ ክልተ ዴኬት 4 ዓይነት ሰብ ኮንካ መፂኻ ሕጂ እንታይ እዩ ንኢትዮጵያስ እንታይ ኢኻ ትሓስብ ንዝኾነ ዴስክ ኣይክወዳደርኒ ኢኻ ኢልዎ ደይተወዳደር ትኾንካ ዳ ንምንታይ ፓርቲ መስሪትካ በቃ ሊን ኣብቲ ተወለድኩሉ ከባቢ ኣብኡ ሊን ክገብር ኣሚን እቲ ህዝቢ ዝፈልጠና ኣብኡ ዝመርፀኒ መሪፅካ ሞ ንምንታይ ስልጣን ዘይትሕዝ ተኾንካ ንፖለቲካዊ ስልጣን ዘይተወዳደር ተኾንካ ንምንታይ ሰልፊ ዘድልየካ ስለዚ እዝን ወድዝን ንትግራይ ጥራይ ኮነ ኢትዮጵያ ብዓብዩ ጭምልቕልቕልቕ ኣቢሉ ጌታቸው ንዓና ኣብ ብዙሕ ነገር ሓራውፂና እዩ ኣብቲ ናይ ጆኖሳይድ ብፍላይ እታ ሰበይቲ እዛ ፀላለ ዝብላ ትግራወይት እያ ኣማን ዓንተይ ፅቡቅ ገይሩ ገሊፅዋ እዩ ጆኖሳይድ ትብል ቃል እታ ጆኖሳይድ ንከይጠፍእ ኢላ ያፃር ደላ ካልእ ወላ ሓንቲ ተልእኽበ ይብላ እታ ጆኖሳይድ ንከይጠፍእ ካብቶም ዝሰርሑ ተጋሩ ምሁራን ሓንቲ እያ ንሳ እቲ ወዲ ምስኣ ዝነበረ ወላ ሓንቲ ቁም ነገር ኣይነበሮን ኣብ ዘረብኡ ንሓንሳብ ንጌታቸው ድግፍ